Chapter 1006. The gathering point was actually a market, but it was safer than the market. There was a formation to protect it, which could block the demonic chi and not invade the people in the formation. The cost of opening this formation was astonishing. To enter, you need to pay a lot of spirit stones depending on the length of time. Yang Chen planned to stay for 3 months this time, and he paid a full 30 jin of middle-grade spirit stones. There were all kinds of shops inside, and you could buy almost anything you wanted, but the price was much higher than in the Dao sections. In addition to the market, it was also a supply point and a place for cultivation. The gathering point itself was built on a spiritual vein, and many separate courtyards were built in places with rich spiritual energy for cultivators to rest and cultivate here. The gathering point on the demon continent, in addition to the businesses in the normal market, there was also a very unique shop, which was the shop specializing in the demonic bead business. The one that Yang Chen came in was such a shop, and it seemed to be the largest and strongest shop of its kind. However, there was no shop assistant here, only the shopkeeper. There were no low-level cultivators on the demon continent to gain experience, and high-level cultivators were disdainful to be a shop assistant. The shopkeeper was also a Dao Sex Yuanying stage master, but it seemed that he had reached the peak Yuanying stage, and was striving to go further. It was estimated that fighting outside could no longer meet his needs for experience, so he opened a demonic bead shop here, while trying to break through. Maybe it was because he was impatient after being disturbed by Yang Chen, or maybe it was because he was too shocked to see the golden demonic bead. His voice made almost half of the street people hear it clearly. What? Pure golden demonic bead? Where is it? Where is it? Are you kidding me? Impossible. A series of voices sounded in all directions, and some people had already rushed over here. The shopkeeper's face changed, and he suddenly gave Yang Chen a wink, and threw Yang Chen's demonic bead to Yang Chen to put it away, and then he took out a similar golden demonic bead, and put it on the plate. This series of actions was extremely fast. Before anyone could reach him, he had already completed everything. The interior of the market was also isolated from divine sense. Everyone could only sense the movements of a few dozen meters around them. No one noticed the movements of the two people. Alas, I was mistaken. The shopkeeper held the golden demonic bead in his hand. His face was full of regret as he shook his head. Everyone who rushed over could see it clearly. Yang Chen could also see it clearly. Although the demonic baleful bead in the shopkeeper's hand was also golden, it was much fainter than the one in Yang Chen's hand. The most obvious difference was that there was a faint black mark on the devilish pearl in the shopkeeper's hand. TSK, I really thought there was a golden demonic bead. The people who had rushed over had clearly seen the condition of the pearls. They shook their heads and slowly walked away. Someone even laughed and scolded. Shopkeeper, have you gone crazy thinking about the golden pearls? Now the devilish bead in the shopkeeper's hand was much bigger than the one in Yang Chen's hands. It was the size of a longan. He didn't know what kind of powerful demonized monster it was obtained from. At first glance, it did look like a pure golden devilish bead. The shopkeeper's scream was understandable. I really thought I saw the legendary golden bead. I made a mistake, I made a mistake. The shopkeeper pretended to laugh at himself, and the crowd slowly dispersed. Soon, only Yang Chen and 1 or 2 people were left in the shop. Friend, do you really want to sell this bead? Someone immediately asked Yang Chen. I can offer a high price. In the demon continent, no one knew the depth of the other party, but those who could get such a large devilish bead were masters. Therefore, most people would call themselves this one, and few people would put on the posture of a superior elder. Come on. The shopkeeper laughed and scolded. Can you pay a higher price than me? Be careful that you will pay a higher price in the future. The other party also seemed to know the power of the shopkeeper. He smiled and turned away. As a result, the rest of the people also walked away, leaving only Yang Chen in the shop. "Friend, this bead is of good quality, let's talk inside." The shopkeeper still used an ordinary tone to invite Yang Chen, but Yang Chen could clearly feel that the shopkeeper's body was already trembling slightly. In the back room, the shopkeeper couldn't even wait to make tea for Yang Chen. He couldn't wait to put a few restrictions first, and then sat opposite Yang Chen, looking at Yang Chen eagerly. Yang Chen was startled and then reacted. He put the golden devilish bead on the table and said with a smile, "Shopkeeper, you don't even have a sip of tea. This is not the way to treat guests." Neglectful, neglectful. The shopkeeper's eyes had been moving along with Yang Chen's hand. When he heard Yang Chen's words, he reacted. He hurriedly got up and carefully made a pot of tea for Yang Chen. Then he picked up the devilish bead again and observed it carefully. Sitting on the side, Yang Chen enjoyed this cup of spirit tea comfortably. After a sip, his mouth was full of saliva, and a refreshing spiritual power surged through his whole body. It was very comfortable. "This tea is good. I have to ask the shopkeeper for some later. Shanshan will definitely like it." The shopkeeper over there took the devilish bead and looked at it over and over again. Yang Chen was not worried at all that he would have any intention of occupying it. This was the demon continent. Everyone was carrying more or less human lives. The dishonest guys had already been cleaned up. The rest must be old shops with excellent reputation. It turns out that there really is a golden devilish bead in this world. After a while, the shopkeeper raised his head. His hand was still holding the devilish bead tightly and sighed. "Is there anything different about this golden one?" Yang Chen asked curiously. "Friend, are you new to the demon continent?" When the shopkeeper heard Yang Chen's question, he smiled and asked back, "Those who have been here for a while won't ask that." Yang Chen nodded. There was nothing to hide about this. It was just the right time to borrow the shopkeeper's mouth to learn about the market of this devilish bead. The shopkeeper didn't hide anything and quickly introduced the devilish bead to Yang Chen. As Yang Chen knew before, the devilish bead was a heaven-defying material that could improve the cultivation base. It was more precious than any heavenly material and earthly treasure. Because the devilish bead obtained from different levels of demonized beasts was different in size, the devilish bead was also divided into different grades. The higher the cultivation base of the demonized beast, the larger the devilish bead condensed on its body, and the more precious the devilish bead was. The classification of this grade was basically based on its weight. Less than 1 qian was the lowest, the lower 9th grade, and then every increase of 1 qian, it would improve a small grade. 2 qian was the middle 9th grade, 3 qian was the upper 9th grade, 4 qian was the lower 8th grade, and so on. Chapter 1007. The reason why it was divided according to the standard of money was because the devilish bead could improve people's cultivation. It was superimposed according to the unit of money. 1 qian of the lower 9th grade could improve 1 year's cultivation, 2 qian of the middle 9th grade could reach 4 years, and 3 qian of the upper 9th grade could reach 20 years. The highest 9th grade, 2 taels of 7 qian, was said to be able to improve a cultivator's cultivation by 500 years. Of course, this was only a legend, because so far, no one had taken the 9th grade devilish bead. According to this calculation, 2 taels of 7 qian was considered the first grade. In Yang Chen's mind, the head-sized devilish bead in his qiankuan bag flashed directly. That weight, it was more than a few caddies, right? What grade was that? Super grade? Anyway, no matter what grade it was, as long as he was willing to take it out, it was estimated that there would be a considerable number of people who would be shocked to the extreme. For the shopkeeper's statement that the higher the realm of the demonized monster, the bigger the devilish bead, Yang Chen expressed limited support. But the shopkeeper's statement was the common knowledge of the general public. It was not that there was anything wrong, but there would occasionally be some exceptions. Although the demonized vine was strong, it had not reached the level of heaven-defying. At best, it was the instinct of the plant that could purify and condense the devil qi. The problem was that the devilish bead obtained by this exception was already heaven-defying to the extreme. This grade, strictly speaking, was only the natural grade of the devilish bead, which was also the grade of weight. But there was another standard to judge the devilish bead. It was the evaluation of the degree of purification of the devil chi in the devilish bead. The devilish bead with devil chi could not be directly taken. This was common sense, otherwise it would be waiting for qigong deviation. The devilish bead must be specially purified before it could be regarded as a real good medicine to improve cultivation. The result of the processing method became another standard of the quality of the devilish bead, which was also divided into several different grades. The cleaner the devil chi was purified, the fewer the black lines on it, and the closer the devilish bead would be to pure gold. The worst was with 9 black lines, the 9-stream bead. The best was the one in the shopkeeper's hand, which only had 1 black line. It was regarded as a first-class bead. If the 2 standards were superimposed, apart from the demonic baleful bead that had not been processed in any way, the lower 9th grade was the worst, while the upper 1st grade was the best. As for the one that Yang Chun took out, there was no black pattern at all, and all the devil chi had been cleanly removed. It was just a legend, and no one had ever seen it. The handling of the demonic chi. The demon continent had some cultivators who specialized in alchemy. Ordinary cultivators could not and did not dare to touch the demonic chi at will. The cultivators who dealt with the demonic chi were generally referred to as devil refiners. Even a fiend refiner would not be able to completely dispel the demonic aura. Everyone usually used the dilution method, using the characteristics of the demonic chi that would infect the surrounding living things, to thin the demonic chi on the demonic bead and dilute it as much as possible. Of course, the materials and living creatures used to achieve this were the unique methods of each fiend refinement master. No one would teach it to others. The demon refiner was naturally an existence that could almost be comparable to the alchemist in the demon continent. The higher the grade of the devil bead, the heavier it was, and the more difficult it was to expel the devil chi. The higher the grade of the devil bead, the worse the purification effect. Even the most advanced fiend refiner could not purify the 9th grade devil bead to the first-class level. The limit was 2 or 6 9th grade. A better one had never appeared. It was a legendary thing. After the shopkeeper said so much, Yang Chun finally understood some common sense of the devil bead. It seemed that the golden demonic bead that he had made this time was an incredible thing. The higher the grade of the devil bead, the higher the cultivation base required to take it. After all, the demonic chi has not been removed and purified, and the greater the impact on the cultivator. Unless it was a last resort, cultivators would not swallow the devil bead that they were not sure to subdue. Of course, there were also risks. As long as they successfully survived the heart demons, there would naturally be many benefits. Not to mention the crazy improvement of the cultivation base, the state of mind would also have a very strong advancement. This was also one of the reasons why all the people who left the demon continent alive were supermasters. The pure golden devil bead meant that there was no demonic chi at all. After taking it, there would be no side effects of simply increasing the cultivation base. Was there anything more attractive to cultivators than improving the cultivation base without any risk? This golden devil bead, I have never seen it before. The shopkeeper held the devil bead tightly, and his eyes couldn't help but show an incredible light. He looked at Yang Chun a few times and finally couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Little friend, forgive me for being presumptuous. This devil bead, which fiend refiner did you find?" A senior fiend refiner who could completely purify the devil bead was simply an inexhaustible gold mountain for these shopkeepers who did the devil bead business. Which shopkeeper could resist this temptation? If such a person could be mastered in his own hands, no, it couldn't be said to be mastered. As long as he cooperated, he could earn a sea of wealth. And with such a fiend refiner, would he be afraid that his cultivation base wouldn't break through? Even if his state of mind couldn't be raised for the time being, He could break through any realm just by relying on the crazy spiritual power. Such a fiend refiner could simply detonate the entire demon continent. Seeing Yang Chen hesitating, the shopkeeper also knew that he had asked presumptuously and hurriedly apologized. This kind of exclusive resource, if it was the shopkeeper himself, it would not be easy to tell others. It was normal for Yang Chen to have such a reaction. "I am presumptuous, please forgive me." The shopkeeper's attitude was very upright, and immediately there was a series of low posture, and then he said in a negotiating tone, "Little friend, this devil bead, can you auction it in the name of my shop? Don't worry, all the formalities fees will be borne by my shop." Such a small bead, which was at best in the 9th grade, was also going to be auctioned? Yang Chen was still a newcomer after all, and he never intended to use the devil bead to improve his cultivation base, so he didn't feel very deep. But the shopkeeper was so enthusiastic and so urgent, Yang Chen couldn't help but want to know what the market price of such a devil bead was. "That's fine." Yang Chen nodded and directly made a condition to the shopkeeper, "But this auction, I would like to see what good things there are." This was almost a request. How could the shopkeeper not agree? He was almost worshipping Yang Chen like an ancestor. Under the great joy, he hurriedly arranged the auction. While Yang Chen was waiting, he was also looking forward to it. If this devil bead could be sold for a good price, then what kind of madness would the one in the Qianquan bag cause? Chapter 1008. This gathering point was not big, because it was close to the periphery of the gathering point, so it was usually a place where some masters of the Zhedan and Yuanying stage came to rest. The masters of the Deshang stage, Yang Chen has basically not seen them. Almost all the people in the demon continent had a common attribute, that was, they were tough and they were full of killing intent. Even if they were not of this nature before, after staying here for a period of time, they would become like this. Yang Chen was an exception, from the appearance. Others could not see how strong Yang Chen was. After the yellow turban strongman body refining technique reached the 4th layer, there was no longer the daunting body shape that he used to have. There was no killing intent around him. If it was not a master who had already controlled it freely, then it was a rookie who had just arrived. However, there was one kind of person who would not show killing intent, that was the demon refiner. The demon refiner did not need to work hard outside to get the devilish bead, so there was no need to go into the depths of the demon continent to kill. Now Yang Chen's performance was that of a skilled demon refiner, no one would doubt it. At least now the shopkeeper of this shop called Intentionless Hall had no doubts at all. Just kidding, a person who could take out a pure golden superclass devilish bead was not a demon refiner. The auction did not take too long to prepare, just 1 day later, it was ready. In fact, there was no such thing as preparation. The auction would be held every few days. Anyone only needed to hand over the things to be auctioned to the auction house on time and wait for it to be held. Yang Chen had a good time this time. There was an auction the next day. The demon continent was not like the ordinary Dao sect auction, where the identities of all guests were kept secret, and everyone had an outer robe that isolated the exploration of spiritual awareness. In fact, everyone probably prepared such a thing for themselves, but most people gave up using it. What was the purpose of coming to the demon continent? In order to gain experience in the killing, in order to feel in the line of life and death. If you even participate in an auction and don't dare to show your face, what was the point of learning? The night before the auction, Yang Chen got a list of the auction items. There were not many things inside, just a dozen or so. There were some refining materials, some vitality recovery pills, and a few defensive magic weapons. Yang Chen was not interested in any of these. What he was interested in were the few high-grade devil beads that had not been processed. The smallest one was mid-grade 5, and the largest one was upper-grade 4. In addition, there was the mediocre devil bead that Yang Chen had provided. Yang Chen could naturally use the unprocessed demonic bead to continue absorbing demonic qi. It must be known that the demonic bead that had been condensed by the demonic beasts was much denser than the normal demonic qi. It was just right for Yang Chen to use. There weren't many people participating in the auction, but basically everyone who could come to this gathering point had come. Apart from those merchants, the people who came to the gathering point were basically here to rest or comprehend. They would not miss such an opportunity. Not to mention anything else, the life-saving magic treasures that were auctioned were the most popular. Wandering on the demon continent, who knows when you will encounter a fatal crisis? If there was a magic weapon that could save your life at a critical moment, you could fight for a chance of survival for yourself. After surviving on the edge of life and death, without exception, their cultivation base and state of mind would be greatly improved. Therefore, these defensive magic weapons were treasures that countless people fought for. Yang Chen didn't know if his superclass devil bead would cause a fight, so he must enter the auction house to see. The common currency on the demon continent was still spirit stones. In addition to being able to buy various things, spirit stones were also a necessity in the demon continent. When necessary, when the spiritual power was exhausted and there were strong enemies around, it was necessary to use spirit stones to quickly replenish the exhausted spiritual power. Yang Chen was sitting with the shopkeeper of the intentionless hall. There were almost 100 people entering the auction hall. There were all kinds of demons and monsters. Everyone didn't care about the identity of the people around them. They just paid attention to what they needed. There were several kinds of spirit pills that came up, and everyone didn't compete fiercely. They were all healing medicinal pills, which were not so powerful, but the closing price was still beyond the expectations of Yang Chen. Compared with the Dao Sex, it was several times more expensive. After the spirit pills, it was the real war of grabbing. A protective belt that could defend against a blow from an early Deshang stage master, and could also self-destruct at the last moment to kill the enemy, became the focus of everyone's competition. 90 gene of middle-grade spirit stones. 95 gene of middle-grade spirit stones. 1 gene of upper-grade spirit stones. 1 gene of upper-grade spirit stones. 4 gene of upper-grade spirit stones deal. In Yang Chen's view, the Dao Sex side was at best a transaction price of 1.5 gene of upper-grade spirit stones, and now it had increased by more than 3 times. That belt was really not good. Not to mention the rough workmanship, it was claimed to be able to withstand a blow from an early Deshang stage master, but in fact, as long as it was a blow from the Yuanying stage, the belt would self-destruct. The only commendable thing was that the materials used were good, but to make it to this level, if Gao Yu knew it, she would definitely scold this refiner for wasting materials. Why is the level of refining here like this? Yang Chen asked the shopkeeper next to him with some puzzlement. However, before waiting for the shopkeeper to answer, a monster cultivator on the other side of the shopkeeper heard Yang Chen's question and directly turned his head to answer Yang Chen for the shopkeeper. Are you new here? Here to gain experience. If you always think about relying on the sharpness of magic weapons, what is the point of gaining experience? At the critical moment, you can block a blow and earn a chance to escape. There is no need to be so good. This answer made Yang Chen couldn't help but nod. It seemed that these people really came to the demon continent to gain experience, not like the young master of the trapped Dragon Valley. The auction continued. After several similar magic weapons, it was soon the turn of the pure golden devilish bead provided by Yang Chen. This made Yang Chen very surprised. He thought that his pillar would be used as the finale goods. He didn't expect it to be so close to the front, and it was taken out in the middle of the auction. The 9th grade devilish bead, a pure golden devilish bead without any demonic energy at all, the starting price, 2 gene of upper grade spirit stones. As always, the auction host on the stage introduced it in his bewitching tone, and then waited for everyone to bid. Unexpectedly, no one made a bid. No one said a word, and the whole place was silent. Yang Chen didn't know what happened. He turned his head to look at the shopkeeper, waiting for his explanation. Is this thing real or not? I want to see it up close. Finally, someone said this. Chapter 1009. It turned out that someone was worried that the thing was fake. Yang Chen also breathed a sigh of relief and waited quietly. This was too normal. He had never heard of such a thing appearing. It was natural for someone to doubt it. When one person spoke, others immediately followed suit. Basically, everyone's request was the same, which was to observe and identify it at a close distance. Generally speaking, it was taboo for the auction house for customers to doubt the credibility of the auction house. However, the host of the auction house didn't care at all. He waved his hand and said, "This thing is really a bit incredible. We didn't believe it at first, but after a few experts saw it, they all said that it was true, so we decided to auction it." Perhaps it was because everything was simple in this place. The auction house was so straightforward that Yang Chen, who was participating for the first time, was not used to it. Since everyone wants to see it, it doesn't matter. However, it's not appropriate for everyone to see it. Let's nominate a few representatives and go to the front to have a look together. The host quickly explained and gave a solution. The group of people moved very quickly. Immediately, a few people were pushed forward and entered the small formation where the demonic baleful bead was placed. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, they turned it over and over several times. Some even picked it up and smelled it. It looks real. After several experts looked at it, they all gave the same conclusion. This thing looks fake, but it's useless. The last expert, who looked like a Tao sect disciple, did not forget to comment after giving the conclusion. There is no trace of demonic qi left, and it has lost the meaning of experience. It's not very useful. These words made Yang Chen look at him in a different light. It seemed that he still underestimated the people in this world. He thought that such things would be crazy for people, but now the words of this expert made Yang Chen admire him. There were people everywhere who understood that one shouldn't take themselves too seriously. This was the realization in Yang Chen's heart when he heard these words. He originally thought that Yang Chen's own use of demonic qi to temper his inner demons was original, but he didn't expect that many people here had the same idea. It seemed that this thing didn't have much of a market. Don't be so noisy if you don't want it. As soon as the Tao sect's disciple finished speaking, someone immediately retorted. Yang Chen was taken aback. When he looked over, he saw that it was a devil cultivator who exuded a strange aura. As soon as he said this, Yang Chen immediately understood. Although Tao cultivators and demonic cultivators were said to reach the same goal by different means, the process of cultivation was vastly different. The Tao sect focused on building a foundation and progressing step by step, while the demon sect took a different path and took advantage of the situation. Therefore, in the end, the disciples of the Tao sect could just cultivate step by step, but the disciples of the demon sect would often have mental demons. This kind of demonic baleful bead, without any demonic qi, could be said to purely increase one's cultivation, without any other side effects. Just as that Tao sect disciple had said, there was only a simple increase in strength without the tempering of the inner demons. To them, it was not very meaningful. However, it was very different for demonic cultivators. A demonic baleful bead that purely increased one's spiritual power cultivation without any demonic qi was simply the favorite of demonic cultivators. Was there anything more wonderful than this? Not only demonic cultivators, in fact, there were also people in the Tao sect and the demon clan who wanted to reap without sowing. It was not a bad thing to increase one's cultivation. Unfortunately, it's a little too small. The demonic cultivator who refuted the Tao sect disciple was the first to bid. After muttering, he directly gave a price: 2 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones. 2 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones. Someone immediately followed without showing any weakness. 2 caddies of upper-grade spirit stones. The price here was still increasing by 1 caddy of upper-grade spirit stones. The shopkeeper over there whispered to Yang Chen, "A normal second-rate demonic baleful bead of middle-grade spirit stones is only 1 catty. This price is already a lot higher. Unfortunately, it's too small." 3 catties. Is there a higher price? 3 catties of upper-grade spirit stones. The host shouted loudly here, stirring up the emotions of the people in the audience. Unfortunately, at this price, it was already 3 times higher than a normal demonic pearl. It was just 1 demonic pearl among the 9 grades, and just as the shopkeeper had said, it was too small. At most, it could only increase the user's cultivation by 5 years, and it was not worth everyone competing for it on a large scale. Yang Chen also understood this defect, but he was not discouraged. This was just a demonic baleful bead of the middle-grade spirit stones, wasn't it? The rest of the demonic baleful beads could be bought and then processed. He believed that if they were sold again, it would definitely be a jaw-dropping high price. As for the demonic baleful bead of the size of a human head in the Qiankuan bag, Yang Chen did not think that the cultivators in this gathering point could afford it. Perhaps he had to go deeper into the gathering point and enter the place where the masters of the Deshang stage gathered. Only then could people afford it. At this moment, the small demonic baleful bead, for Yang Chen, was just a tool to test the market reaction. Success was gratifying, failure was also gratifying. Now it seemed that the effect was not bad, at least there were people competing for it. The next auction was the second-rate 5th and 4th grade demonic baleful bead. This time, Yang Chen also joined the competition. The 5th and 4th grade demonic baleful bead was enough to improve people's cultivation base for dozens to 100 years. Even if there was a little bit of demonic energy, it was enough to make people go bankrupt to compete for it. Maybe with such a demonic baleful bead, someone could break through the bottleneck and enter the peak Yuanying stage or even the Deshang stage. Compared with this great improvement in the realm, a trivial spirit stone was simply not worth mentioning. It's just that the guys who participated in this auction were doomed to tragedy. In front of Yang Chen, a super rich man with a lot of spirit stones, the 4 demonic baleful beads were all collected by Yang Chen with a kind of momentum of swallowing the world. The fierceness of the momentum and the fierceness of the price made the shopkeeper sitting next to him very surprised. Even if the intentionless hall specialized in the demonic baleful bead business, there was only a first-class upper 5th grade demonic baleful bead, which was already the treasure of the shop. On weekdays, the business of the demonic baleful bead was mostly done with the 9th, 8th, and 7th grade demonic baleful bead. In this area, there was no better demonic baleful bead. Even if there was, it would be taken to the gathering points deeper in the demon continent to be sold. Moreover, at this level, the 5th and 4th grade demonic baleful bead was no longer retail at all, almost all of them were used for auction. At the beginning, the shopkeeper thought that Yang Chen was just a poor newcomer and sold the demonic baleful bead in exchange for some spirit stones. Only now did he know that he just wanted to understand the market. The spirit stones that Yang Chen used to buy these 4 demonic baleful beads were enough to buy the entire intentionless hall. Looking at Yang Chen's appearance, he couldn't see that he was a rich man at all. It was really infuriating. Chapter 10:10. However, the shopkeeper was slightly indifferent to Yang Chen's fierce approach to the auction. This was not the territory of the Dao sections. Yang Chen's purchase like this would only give people the feeling that he was a fool with too much money. It could be said that there was no good man or woman in the demon continent. This kind of wealth exposure would definitely lead to a fatal disaster. The pure gold devilish bead just now is too small. Wait for me to dispose of these beads and have another auction. The shopkeeper's worry had not yet been relieved, and he heard Yang Chen's words over there. These words directly detonated the entire auction hall, turning the 4th and 5th grade devilish bead into a pure gold devilish bead. Boom! Countless people's exclamations sounded directly, even if almost all of the people present were already highly respected Yuanying stage ancestors. the 4th and 5th grade pure gold devilish bead, simply increasing the spiritual power cultivation base by tens of years to hundreds of years, without any side effects, without any demonic energy influence. Is this possible? Everyone was a master. Although Yang Chen's voice was not high, they would not be mistaken. The problem was that this sentence simply subverted everyone's cognition. After the exclamation, all of them looked at Yang Chen with a horrified gaze. "He is a magic refiner?" someone said in a low voice, and everyone suddenly woke up like a dream. When they looked at Yang Chen again, there was no longer the greed just now, but a layer of fear and respect. The shopkeeper was relieved for a long time. Yang Chen had the identity of a magic refiner, and his safety on the demon continent was absolutely guaranteed. In addition, he could completely refine the devilish bead into pure gold, which was a layer of 100% insurance. No one was willing to risk being besieged by the cultivators of the entire demon continent to offend such a magic refiner. It seemed that the pure gold devilish bead just now was simply pushed out by this magic refiner to see the market reaction. Of course, it was not ruled out the possibility that the magic refiner had not obtained more devilish beads so far. In this way, the purpose of Yang Chen's purchase of high-grade devilish beads was already very clear. After all, it was obvious that Yang Chen was a newbie. He had just arrived, so it was very possible that he could not find the demonic bead. Furthermore, he was at the early nascent soul stage, so he definitely wouldn't be able to find anything good in the outermost area. Therefore, he could only buy them at the auction. Earlier, Yang Chen's words were very clear. After this batch of baleful beads was dealt with, they would be auctioned again. Didn't that mean that everyone present here had a chance to obtain a 4th or 5th grade pure gold baleful bead? Decades and hundreds of years of bitter cultivation could be obtained in a single night. How crazy was that? Everyone wished that the auction would start right away so that everyone could bid to their heart's content. Unfortunately, Yang Chen still had to go back to deal with it. Everyone understood that the fiend refiners would not be able to deal with the demonic baleful bead in a short period of time. It just so happened that they could go out and raise some spirit stones during this period of time. "Master, what kind of materials do you need? We have them. Please feel free to use them." Immediately, a quick-witted guy started to curry favor with them. Yang Chen had already used a 9th grade baleful bead to prove that he had the ability to completely purify it. Naturally, the closer the relationship with Yang Chen, the better it was. This voice almost reminded everyone. Everyone opened their mouths one after another, and they all had the same content. If Yang Chen had any needs, he could just order them to do it. If he wanted something, everyone would definitely gather it immediately. The purpose was naturally to get closer to Yang Chen. Seeing everyone so enthusiastic, the shopkeeper immediately became anxious and hurriedly shouted, "I have already taken care of the master's needs. Don't worry. Let's wait for the master's next auction." Yang Chen did come with the shopkeeper of the Intentionless Hall, and the baleful bead was also auctioned in the name of the Intentionless Hall. The shopkeeper said so, but it made many people give up their thoughts. Everyone was only concerned about when the next auction would be held. After a month, there will be at least one 5th grade baleful bead here for auction. Yang Chen had to wait here for the women to reunite anyway, so he directly gave a deadline. During this time, it was also convenient for these people to raise spirit stones. Everyone hurriedly left and prepared everywhere. It must be known that Yang Chen did not only have one 5th grade baleful bead. He also had a few 4th grade ones. Even if there was only one auction after a month, there would be more later. It was just right to take advantage of this time. Firstly, it was to raise spirit stones. Secondly, if he had no hope, he could also inform some promising masters to come. Even if he couldn't buy it himself, if he gave this kind of information to some supermasters, it would not be a big or small favor. He might be able to use it in the future, so why not? Almost no one here was a fool. Everyone immediately went about their own business. Soon, the auction house became empty. On the other hand, the host of the auction house had a face of excitement. He came forward and bowed to Yang Chen. "Thank you, master." The auction house was sincerely grateful. Yang Chen not only chose to auction, but the key was to choose to auction it in their place. It was simply a pie falling from the sky for them. In the future, this auction house might become stronger. How could the auction house not be ecstatic? Even if Yang Chen was only here for a short period of time, it was also a good opportunity for the auction house. It must be known that there would never be real masters coming to this kind of gathering place in the periphery. If this time was done properly, they would definitely be able to have a relationship with some big shots. The benefits for future development were self-evident. Yang Chen did not care about these trivial matters. He directly returned to the room he had booked and went into seclusion. In the gathering place, no one was allowed to fight, no matter what the reason was. Once a fight was started, the first to start would be attacked by the crowd. If there was any grudge that needed to be settled, they could go out of the gathering place and find a place to settle it. However, killing was not allowed in the gathering place. Moreover, with Yang Chen's current identity as a devil refiner, no one dared to disrespect Yang Chen. His residence was being watched almost all the time. Who didn't have eyes and wanted to make a move? In addition to being killed immediately as a gift to Yang Chen, there would be no other end. Everyone was waiting for the next auction to be held. It had not been a month yet, but this small gathering place on the edge had begun to have a lot of popularity. Some Deshang stage masters who usually would not appear here had also arrived here in person, making the atmosphere of the gathering place warm up. In the midst of everyone's expectations, Yang Chen's retreat finally opened on the 27th day, and Yang Chen appeared in front of everyone with a tired face. "I got two." In the face of the auction house manager, Yang Chen just said one sentence and threw two pure golden devilish beads to him. "I want to take a break." Chapter 10-11. Yang Chen was not afraid that the auction house would embezzle his two devilish beads. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, who would dare? Even if it was taken on the spot, it was impossible to increase 100 years of cultivation on the spot. It would definitely be swarmed by people. Moreover, what the owner of the auction house cared about was not just these years of cultivation base, but the reputation of the auction house. Don't look at the lawlessness of the demon continent, but if you mess around in the gathering point, you will definitely die. One upper 5th grade, one lower 4th grade. The owner of the auction house was also straightforward enough. When he got the devilish bead, he immediately identified the grade. In fact, it was already known at the last auction, but the announcement in the middle could still attract a lot of attention. Especially the last sentence he announced, "All of them are pure gold. They are top-notch demonic baleful beads." Boom! The people who were waiting anxiously at the gathering point finally made an excited sound. Even those who were not at the scene but had been paying attention to the situation here with their spiritual awareness, showed a knowing smile in their respective rooms. The attention of the big shots did not last too long on the devilish bead, and soon turned to Yang Chen. A magic refiner who could completely purify the devilish bead was a worthy target for anyone. Not to mention the demon sect disciples and the monster race, they needed this kind of thing to improve their cultivation base without any risk. Even if it was a Tao sect disciple, who wouldn't be willing to increase their cultivation base by dozens or hundreds of years for no reason. On the demon continent, establishing a friendly relationship with such a magic refiner meant that as long as they had a 4th or 5th grade devilish bead, they could improve their cultivation base by 100 years. 100 years of cultivation base was enough for those masters of the early Deshang stage to enter the middle Deshang stage. Not to mention those masters who have reached the peak Yuanying stage, even if there is no improvement in their state of mind, just the skyrocketing of their spiritual power cultivation base was enough to cross the Deshang stage. All the masters of the Yuanying stage in the gathering point were warned, and it was a warning from several Deshang stage masters. No matter where they were in the demon continent, whoever dared to go against this magic refiner would be strangled by several masters. Everyone here was looking forward to the auction being held as scheduled, but over there, Yang Chen began to be a little anxious. Why haven't his wives arrived yet? According to the time, it should be about time. Did something happen? With regards to the cultivation of the 4 women, Yang Chen was quite assured. If they just wandered around the periphery, there would not be a problem. Demonic beasts similar to the demonic vine were also unique. Yang Chen did not believe that he would encounter another one within the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. In this 1 month's time, it was said to be purifying the demonic baleful bead, but in reality, it only took a few days to truly absorb the demonic qi. Most of the time, Yang Chen tempered his state of mind with his inner demons. Inner demons did not only affect negative emotions. When accumulated to a certain extent, even positive emotions could be induced into inner demons. The most typical example was overconfidence. Overconfidence turned into blind confidence, which then produced a series of adverse effects. Yang Chen had never encountered such a situation in his previous life. Speaking of which, it was related to the experience of his previous life. How could Yang Chen have self-confidence when he was chased by the Taishaman and then controlled by them? It was nothing more than a step-by-step process. Then, that guy from the mysterious Heaven sect didn't want Yang Chen to die early, so he helped him break through some bottleneck. In terms of true mental cultivation, Yang Chen in his previous life was at most at the peak of the Heaven Immortal level. In this life, Yang Chen obviously did not realize this until these emotions appeared. In Yang Chen's understanding, negative emotions were very easy to create inner demons, but he never thought that positive emotions would also be the same. During this month, Yang Chen experienced at least 3 such situations, and each time, he narrowly avoided them. However, this kind of tempering benefited Yang Chen a lot. He felt that his mental cultivation had improved a lot, and he finally had a correct understanding of some things that he could not understand before. This also made Yang Chen more understand why those people in the heavenly court would still have banquets and gatherings from time to time instead of cultivating hard. Originally, Yang Chen thought that the cultivation of a combination of work and rest was the right way, but now he understood how one-sided it was. Of course, the combination of work and rest was good, but the real reason was the correct guidance of desire. Everything in the world has its own desires. Generally speaking, acting according to instinct is basically normal behavior. Human beings are a little more complicated and have a lot more morals and ethics, but some normal needs do not necessarily have to be abandoned. When it is time to release it. This is the real way of cultivation. On the day before the auction was held, Yang Chen finally saw the figure of Shi Shanshan. She, wearing a veil, appeared in the gathering point with a fierce, murderous aura. Many people in the demon continent had such a situation. Everyone's mind was attracted by the devilish bead to be auctioned, and they would not pay attention to a woman whose face could not be seen clearly. To be honest, who survived in the demon continent, was there a guy who didn't want to live when he saw a woman? Even if he paid attention, he only regarded her as an opponent, not a woman who wanted to hit on. Especially after Shi Shanshan entered Yang Chen's room, no one dared to hit on Shi Shanshan. Who dared to touch the woman that the mysterious alchemist Master Yang had taken a fancy to? Yang Chen was very strange. Shi Shanshan arrived at the gathering point at the right time, which was conceivable, but why hadn't Gao Yugong, Sun Ling and Sun Qingxue arrived yet? Although he was not very worried about their safety, he was still afraid that something would happen to them. Why are you only here now? Yang Chen was naturally happy to see Shi Shanshan. Because of his successful realization, he was also extraordinarily gentle to Shi Shanshan, and did not hide his feelings of missing Shi Shanshan. Shi Shanshan was the first to come back, facing Yang Chen alone. Seeing that Yang Chen was so concerned, her heart was equally sweet. It seemed that even the murderous intent on her body had been forgotten in the back of her mind. The cold and elegant Cold Plum Fairy, so comfortably curled up in Yang Chen's arms, as if she was Yang Chen's little tabby cat. If others saw it, they would definitely be shocked and drop their jaws. Yang Chen hugged his wife while telling her about his experience during this period of time. When she heard that Yang Chen could completely purify the devilish bead, even Shi Shanshan, who was used to seeing Yang Chen's miracles, couldn't help but express shock again. Similarly, Shi Shanshan curled up in Yang Chen's arms, enjoying the best fragrant tea with great comfort, and told Yang Chen about her harvest in detail this year. While Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan were enjoying the rare time alone, the auction house had been turned upside down. Chapter 10-12. For the auction of the demonic bead, Yang Chen didn't care anymore. Anyway, it was just spirit stones, he had seen it a lot, and with a beautiful woman in his arms, who would be interested in those worldly possessions. Yang Chen didn't care, but it didn't mean that other people didn't care. People who came to the demon continent to gain experience, Yang Chen didn't know about other places, but the Dao sects were clear about it. They were all guys who basically didn't have a day in the sect. They relied on coming here to work hard in exchange for a little bit of cultivation capital. Everyone's aptitude was not very good. This 5th and 4th grade demonic bead could improve their cultivation base for decades or even hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Where could they find a supplement if their aptitude was not good? Wasn't it from time? This would save 100 years of hard work. Who wouldn't be happy? Just at the scene of the auction hall, there were 7 Deshang stage masters and dozens of peak Yuanying stage masters. This was because the news had not spread further in a month, otherwise, the lineup would definitely be stronger than this. The people at the auction also knew what was good and bad. They did not arrange anything else and went straight to the subject. These guys were all murderers, who knew if they would wait impatiently until the end, it was better to meet their needs. As soon as they came up, the auction entered a climax. 5th grade demonic bead, superb, pure gold, starting price of 80 gene of upper grade spirit stones. Each bid increase shall not be less than 1 gene of upper grade spirit stones. Start. 100 gene. Immediately, someone directly raised the price to another level. However, although in terms of value, 100 gene of upper-grade spirit stones and 1 gene of top-grade spirit stones were equivalent, not everyone had top-grade spirit stones. Everyone was still accustomed to using upper-grade spirit stones to calculate the price. 120 gene. 125 gene. 130 gene. Everyone's default was to use upper-grade spirit stones as the unit of quotation, and the price quoted was basically increased by 5 gene of upper-grade spirit stones, and soon it reached 180 gene of upper-grade spirit stones. At this point, even those masters of the Deshang stage seemed to have begun to calculate the spirit stones in their pockets, and the increase in the price was reduced to 1 gene. 181 gene. 182 gene. 180 kilograms of high-grade spirit stones was equivalent to 1.5 kilograms of top-grade spirit stones. If you look at it from the perspective of supplementing spiritual power, this 1 gene 8 tails of the best quality spirit stone was enough for a master of the early Deshang stage to use for decades, almost the same as the improvement of the cultivation base. The problem was that raising one's cultivation level was to raise the upper limit of one's cultivation level, while replenishing one's spiritual power was only to replenish one's current cultivation level. The two were absolutely incomparable. At this time, the bidding speed had slowed down a lot. Under normal circumstances, the host of the auction house would try his best to stir up the emotions of the bidders and let them join in the bidding process. This was the usual practice of the auction house. However, in the face of so many great masters today, even if the host of the auction was also a Yuanying stage ancestor, he did not dare to say anything at this time. Stirring up emotions? What a joke! Didn't they see that the faces of the masters of the Deshang stage had already turned black? Wasn't provoking their emotions the same as courting death? Most of the nascent soul grand ancestors in the auction hall became spectators. This price, even if they exhausted their wealth, they couldn't come up with it. They could only watch a few masters and rich people bid there. Several masters of the Deshang stage were muttering words in their mouths, but none of the people around them could hear what they were saying. In the ears of the masters of the Deshang stage, who could not be noticed by others, there were constant arguments of several bidders. This old man has been trapped in this realm for more than 200 years. This bead must be won. If you give it up, this old man will be grateful. The next one you have to pay attention to. You old man, you lack cultivation base. I also lack cultivation base. Why should I give it to you? This old man has a top-grade material in his hands. If you are willing, this old man is willing to give you a reward. All kinds of secret operations were done, and on the table, it was still increasing by 1 gene. When the time was almost up, 1 gene was added to ensure that there was no deal. The invisible transaction finally had a result, and the price of the auction house was also handed over to 206 gene of high-grade spirit stones. This upper 5th grade devilish bead was finally sold and fell into the hands of a master of the Deshang stage of the demonic path. The spirit stones were delivered on the spot, and the goods were also delivered on the spot. The demonic cultivator who got the devilish bead, without saying anything, directly swallowed the upper 5th grade devilish bead into his mouth. After chewing it, he swallowed it into his stomach. This move was not surprising at all. Most of the people who bought the devilish bead dealt with it in this way, directly eliminating any thoughts that wanted to buy the devilish bead. There were also people like Yang Chun, but they were usually devil refiners, and no one would have any ideas on them. Before the second devilish bead was auctioned, everyone also wanted to see if this upper 5th grade devilish bead had any effect. So a certain master directly spoke to the host of the auction house, and then the whole auction was suspended. Everyone looked at the master who swallowed the devilish bead. The gathering point was strictly forbidden to fight. Even if there was an irreconcilable hatred, it was not allowed to use force here. The master was very relieved to swallow the devilish bead, and then, regardless of who was around him, he began to close his eyes and refine the devilish bead. An invisible power was emitted from the master who was sitting cross-legged, and directly forced the people around him to take a few steps back. Then, everyone felt that his aura was soaring all the way, almost without stopping. This soaring aura lasted for a full 2 hours. During these 2 hours, whether it was the Yuanying stage ancestors or the masters of the Deshang stage, all of them were silently staring at him. Whether the high-grade devilish bead had any effect after being completely purified, this guy was the best touchstone. The reason why other masters would give this devilish bead to him, in addition to the many benefits he promised, was also to observe with this purpose. If they wanted to completely purify the devilish bead, as long as they kept an eye on Yang Chun, would they be afraid? In fact, which of these masters did not have a few high-grade devilish beads in their hands? It was just that they were afraid that the devilish chi contained in it would hurt people, so they had never dared to use it. If it really worked, they would rather pay a high price to ask Yang Chun to purify their devilish bead for them. After the master's aura soared to the apex, it finally stopped. Then the master who was sitting cross-legged just gave a low shout and stopped. Although there was no other performance, the changes that took place in his body were enough for everyone to judge whether the devilish bead was effective. In just such a short time, the somewhat old master became a lot younger. Although he still had white hair, he already looked 100 times more energetic. Chapter 10:13. Needless to say, this was the effect of the devilish bead. Adding dozens of years of cultivation would naturally be beneficial to the body. The reason why the old fellow was so anxious to get one was that he had been trapped in this realm for a long time and could not break through, and his body began to age slowly. There was no way to stop this change. The only hope was to break through the bottleneck and improve his cultivation base. His situation, several masters of the same Deshang stage could almost guess it. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that the devilish bead had played a decisive role. "What are you waiting for, the second one?" Another master of the Deshang stage immediately urged. The second devilish bead was quickly put up. This time it was a 4th grade devilish bead, which was heavier than the previous one. Although it was only a difference of 1 cent, the grade was higher. This was a devilish bead, which could improve one's cultivation base by 100 years. 4th grade devilish bead, super pure gold. The host of the auction house did not dare to neglect and quickly said these words. However, before he finished, someone had already interrupted his introduction and directly offered a price: 250 pounds of high-grade spirit stones. 270 pounds. 270 pounds. A group of people did not pay attention to the host and competed to bid. The host on the stage gave a dry smile, closed his mouth, and then quietly waited for the bidding to be in a stalemate. At that time, it would be time for him to announce the first and second times in the deal. The competition soon became white-hot, and the master who got the first devilish bead in front seemed to be very trustworthy. He did not bid on this devilish bead. He just closed his eyes slightly, listening to the movements around him, and at the same time experiencing the new changes in his body. The sudden increase of decades of cultivation base was naturally not used to it. Normally, it took decades of cultivation to be able to improve. Now that it was obtained, it was normal to not be used to it. At the beginning of the first one, only the masters of the Deshang stage bid. The Yuanying stage masters in the other auction halls basically did not make much of a move. But now the situation was different. Everyone really saw the effect of the devilish bead, and all the people who had the financial resources competed to bid. 300 pounds. Finally, the price broke through the price of 300 pounds of high-grade spirit stones, which was the price of 3 pounds of top-grade spirit stones, but the competition continued and still did not stop. 305 pounds. 308 pounds. 310 pounds. The price slowly rose under the increase of 3 to 5 caddies, and it seemed to be reaching its peak. It was about to reach this number. Suddenly, something strange happened. 150 kilograms. A resolute voice rang out, entering everyone's ears. Everyone's gaze was attracted by the owner of the voice. The one who made the bid was a shopkeeper who owned a shop in this gathering point. He was usually stingy and loved money as much as his life. At this time, he suddenly made a bid which was really shocking. Suddenly adding dozens of pounds of high-grade spirit stones, even those masters of the Deshang stage could not help but start to ponder. It was a good thing that his cultivation had improved, but it was useless if he did not have so many spirit stones on hand. Everyone usually focused on cultivation, so why would they care about how much wealth they had accumulated? This auction would be settled on the spot. Without spirit stones, there would be no demonic baleful bead. Borrowing from others on the spot? Who would be willing to use their life savings to help others improve their cultivation? This was the demon continent. If the other party made up his mind not to return it and directly killed him, wouldn't it be digging his own grave? For a while, no one bid again, and the auction hall was silent for a while. The host of the auction house finally refreshed his spirit, and it was his turn to appear. 150 kilograms of high-grade spirit stones once. 150 kilograms of high-grade spirit stones twice. 150 kilograms of high-grade spirit stones sold. In the angry eyes of several masters of the Deshang stage, the shopkeeper who successfully bought the demonic baleful bead handed over the spirit stones and the demonic baleful bead with a cold face. Just like the master of the Deshang stage just now, he quickly swallowed the demonic baleful bead and sat on the ground to refine it. Everyone didn't leave, they all wanted to see what effect the shopkeeper would have after taking it. Soon everyone noticed a fact that the shopkeeper had reached the peak yuanying stage and was trapped in this bottleneck for a long time. Later, he could only open a small shop in the gathering point. While operating, he felt the breakthrough. This time, it was estimated that in order to succeed in the breakthrough, he took out all the means of retreat, intending to break through the bottleneck in one fell swoop. They didn't have to wait for long. About 4 hours later, the shopkeeper opened his eyes. There was no need to ask the shopkeeper if it had any effect, because the tribulation clouds had begun to slowly condense in the sky at this moment. The shopkeeper screamed excitedly, then flew away from the auction house and went straight to the outside of the gathering point. The tribulation clouds condensed. It was about to cross the tribulation. It was forbidden to fight in the gathering point, and naturally it was forbidden to cross the tribulation, so the shopkeeper quickly rushed out. Only a moment after rushing out, the unveil tribulation began to descend. When the yuanying stage master crossed the tribulation, only those masters of the Deshang stage dared to get close, the others were hundreds of feet away. The silent unveil tribulation, after a few flashes in the sky, the tribulation clouds in the sky began to dissipate, and in the direction of the shopkeeper's tribulation, there was a strong and slightly familiar aura. It was the shopkeeper who bought the 4th-grade demonic baleful bead. This situation could only explain one thing. The shopkeeper who crossed the tribulation had successfully passed the unveil tribulation and was promoted to a master of the Deshang stage. After 2 consecutive masters took the demonic baleful bead, one was rejuvenated and the other was promoted to the Deshang stage. No matter which one, for those who wanted to know the effect of this pure golden demonic baleful bead, it was irresistible. The people in the gathering point almost instantly burned up. Such a powerful demonic baleful bead came from the more shocking super demon refiner, Master Yang Rishing, Master Yang. The most important thing was that Master Yang was still in the gathering point, and there were 2 higher-grade demonic baleful beads in his hands, which were said to be auctioned. Those masters who had the demonic baleful bead in their hands and had not been purified were even more happy. Of course, it was not as good as using their own, they only had to pay for the processing costs. At this time, it was natural to pay attention to Master Yang, pay attention to when the old man would organize the auction and when he would purchase the demonic baleful bead. Everyone has more or less swallowed the low-grade demonic baleful bead, and naturally knew the risks of the demonic baleful bead that contained the demonic qi. Now that Yang Chun could completely purify it, this kind of opportunity, how could everyone easily give up? Countless people began to guess the purification technique used by Yang Chun. What kind of method could make the demonic baleful bead so pure? Chapter 10:14. In theory, most people can think of Yang Chen's method of purifying the devilish bead. Unfortunately, being able to think of it does not mean that it can be done. The devil refiner absorbs the demonic energy, uses it to temper themselves, and then purifies the devilish bead. I don't know how many people have thought about it, and I don't know how many people have tried it, but except for Yang Chen, everyone else's result is only one word: miserable. Going berserk and becoming a lunatic was considered a light punishment. The result of most people doing this is losing control of their spiritual power and exploding to death. There were also a few who seemed to have a small breakthrough at the critical moment and even attracted the heavenly tribulation, but they couldn't completely suppress the demonic energy, so the result was that they were turned into ashes under the heavenly tribulation, leaving nothing behind. Over time, some smart people came up with the practice of using other living creatures to absorb the demonic energy, and it also received certain results. However, ordinary living creatures may not be able to withstand the invasion of the demonic energy, and the devil refiner needs to use various means to improve the purification effect of living creatures. Of course, the final outcome is that the living creature will definitely become a demonized monster and then be killed. This technique is also the common technique in the demon continent now. The difference is that each devil refiner uses living creatures and the means used to improve living creatures. The best devil refiner can reach the first-class level, but there is still a black line left. In the minds of the people of the demon continent, the demonic energy cannot be completely expelled. The devilish bead that Yang Chun took out simply subverted all people's cognition. For Yang Chun to be able to do this, he also had his unique conditions. First of all, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness has reached the level of the second-grade human immortal, and he can completely suppress this level of demonic energy and control the speed and amount of absorption at any time. Second, Yang Chun has the memory of the great principal golden immortal. These 2 points are particularly important. Although the demonic energy is powerful, under these 2 points, it can't cause any substantial harm to Yang Chun. Yang Chun can control the amount of demonic energy intake, and this alone has put himself firmly in an invincible position. Even if the demonic energy is powerful, without enough concentration, it can't make Yang Chun have the crisis of cultivation deviation. All the emotional abnormalities caused by the devil chi could be quickly pacified by the cultivation of the state of mind of his previous life. Coupled with the cheat-like heaven-defying secret art of the 3 purities secret art, the devil chi on the devilish bead could only become a tonic for Yang Chun. The commotion caused by the tribulation outside naturally woke up Yang Chun and Shanshan, who were whispering sweet nothings to each other. Yang Chun walked out of the door and found a random person to understand what had happened. Since Grandmaster Yang had asked, which bastard would dare to hide it from him? Moreover, this matter was related to Grandmaster Yang. Yang Chun was fine, but Shanshan couldn't help but be surprised when she heard that it was her Longjuan's devilish bead that helped a master who had been trapped in the peak of Yuanying realm for a long time to cross the tribulation. Before the experiential learning, Yang Chun had sternly warned the 4 women not to use the demonic bead. The reason was very good. This kind of thing that was easy to come was far less suitable for themselves than their own cultivation. Now that someone was using the demonic bead to advance to the Desheng stage, Shanshan couldn't help but be curious again, and asked Yang Chun, "This demonic bead, we really don't want to use it? Can't you get rid of all the demonic energy? It's a medicine with 3 parts poison." Yang Chun directly used a popular saying among mortals to respond to Shanshan's question, "Your aptitude is outstanding, there is no need to use such a means. Even if you don't use the demonic bead, your cultivation speed is much faster than them. Why do you have to use this kind of thing that will have big trouble in the future?" "There will be big trouble in the future?" Shanshan frowned, as if a little skeptical of Yang Chun's words. "How do you know?" "I just know." Yang Chun pointed to his head, but didn't say another word. In his previous life, the masters of the demon continent who ascended to the spiritual world and the immortal world were indeed very powerful warriors. However, when they cultivated to a higher realm, the golden immortal and great principal golden immortal, they had to spend thousands of years to adjust the increasingly mixed spiritual power, saying that it was a big trouble was not enough to describe it. Of course, the benevolent see benevolence, the wise see wisdom. If it was not like this in the mortal world, maybe they would not even have the chance to enter the spiritual world and the immortal world. Everyone has their own aptitude, everyone has their own way of cultivation, and it can't be forced. Yang Chun couldn't force others to cultivate according to his instructions, but he could influence his wives. Shanshan also asked, and never said that she would not listen to Yang Chun's instructions. However, after discovering that the devilish bead that Yang Chun had processed had such an effect, she couldn't help but be moved. She took out 4 devilish beads that were about the 6th grade or lower and handed them to Yang Chun. "Deal with these 2. The spirit stones from the auction can be regarded as people's private money." Shanshan did not shy away from saying the word private money, and was not afraid that Yang Chun would be angry. In fact, Yang Chun never cared about this kind of thing. The 4 women had their own masters, and it was normal for them to have some good things from their relatives. On the contrary, his husband had not really given anything. He had given a lot of life source magic weapons and medicinal pills, but he had never given a simple currency like spirit stones. It's my mistake. Yang Chun immediately realized his mistake. It was normal to give his wife some key things, but he couldn't lack some little care. Giving them a batch of spirit stones, so that they could freely choose some things they liked, was also the obligation of a husband. The auction house did not let Yang Chun wait long. After deducting half of the usual handling fee, it was quickly sent to Yang Chen's hands. The total was more than 500 jin of high-grade spirit stones. Yang Chun directly took out 100 jin and gave it to Shanshan. Your pocket money. Yang Chun smiled and divided the spirit stones into 5 parts, 4 for 100 jin, and 1 for the remaining. During this time, take it and use it first, wait for me to buy a better devilish bead, and sell it at a good price. The implication was that there would be more in the future. Suddenly there were more than 100 jin of high-grade spirit stones. Shanshan couldn't help but be happy. This was the value of a jin of top-grade spirit stones. Although the Green Jade Immortal Island was a big family, it had never been so generous. Her own husband, whether it was an alchemist master or a devil refiner, was always a rich profession. By the way, why are you the only one who has come back so far? Waiting until now, he didn't see the shadow of the other 3 women. Yang Chun of course thought of something, so he asked Shanshan. He believed that Shanshan must know the answer. Before we dispersed, we had agreed that everyone would take turns to accompany you. Shanshan was not afraid that Yang Chun would know, and replied directly, I am the first, elder sister is the last. Chapter 10-15. Yang Chun was still a little amused by the thoughts of the 4 women. It seemed that they all wanted to spend a period of time alone with Yang Chun and occupy Yang Chun alone. This made Yang Chun very proud. Everyone said 10 days, and naturally, there was no lack of lingering in these 10 days. In addition to intimacy, there was naturally no lack of double cultivation. Between the husband and wife, it was a real double cultivation from spiritual awareness to cultivation base. They hadn't seen each other for more than a year, and each had new insight. In just a few days, the cultivation effect was remarkable. Shanshan was obviously still in a state where she couldn't control her murderous aura. This was a common state of newcomers who had just come to the demon continent, and it was also a very obvious sign of a newcomer. Did anyone provoke you? Yang Chun asked with a smile while talking to Shanshan during a break in his cultivation. There are a few, seeing that my cultivation base is low, and I'm not familiar with it when I first came here, so I made a few moves. Shanshan replied very casually. A few Yuanying stage, and 2 or 3 peak Yuanying stage. As she spoke, Shanshan's body reclined on a beauty couch that Yang Chun had specially made for her. Her jade body was exposed, and it was indescribably tempting. In addition, she had just been moisturized by Yang Chun, and that kind of unconcealable beauty was extremely tempting. Well, you should be careful in the future. Yang Chun didn't care who those guys were, and only told Shanshan. Don't you want to ask their results? Shanshan couldn't help but want to show off a little, but Yang Chun didn't ask about the results, which made Shanshan a little coquettish. You have come back safely, what happened to them, do you still need to ask? Yang Chun replied with a smile. Women were like this. When facing their lover, their IQ seemed to be naturally reduced. Such a simple question, Shanshan also wanted Yang Chun to give a reason. However, this could only mean one thing. In the eyes of Shanshan, Yang Chun was very important. This was enough. What else could make Yang Chun happier than this? The Cold Plum Fairy, whose name would shake the entire immortal world in the future, regarded him so highly. What else was there to be dissatisfied about? This state of killing intent exposure, it was estimated that it would last for a long time to disappear, until Shanshan could control it perfectly. This process itself was a very good process of tempering one's state of mind. Yang Chen would never spoil things through excessive enthusiasm. Some things were better to let nature take its course. When you can control your killing intent, I have something good for you. Demonic qi tempering was definitely a good thing that could not be obtained even if one wished for it. Of course, Yang Chen would not keep it to himself. He would definitely use it on his wife. Unfortunately, now was not the best time. They still needed to further strengthen their cultivation before they could proceed. In Yang Chen's place, the fatigue and tense nerves brought about by the crazy killing could be completely relaxed, and Shi Shanshan also experienced a rare few days of completely trusting life without the slightest defense. Everything was supported by Yang Chen. This feeling was really good. 10 days passed in a blink of an eye. Shi Shanshan and Yang Chen were very infatuated when they were together. She almost wanted to cling to Yang Chen and not leave, but when it was really time to separate, Shi Shanshan instantly returned to the cold plum fairy. She kissed Yang Chen lightly, put on her veil, turned around and left without hesitation. Those who were paying attention to Yang Chen's gathering point were curious about the identity of Shi Shanshan. Some people also recognized that it was the woman who came to the demon continent with Yang Chen. She should be called Han Mei. But no one knew the specific origin of her sect. Of course, some people would quietly arrange it and let people secretly monitor the whereabouts of Shi Shanshan. But before deciding how to treat Yang Chen, no one would make a move on Shi Shanshan. And soon, everyone's attention was attracted by another thing. Yang Chen released 5 more devilish beads. This time, of the 5 devilish beads, 1 was in the lower 4th grade, and the other 4 were only in the lower 6th grade. But even so, it attracted the attention of countless people. The lower 4th grade was naturally the competition of those masters of the Deshang stage, or those who had been trapped in the peak Yuanying stage for many years after being promoted to the Deshang stage. The lower 6th grade, the masters would definitely not look at it, and it was naturally prepared for the poor people of the Yuanying stage. The Yuanying stage ancestor, in the domain of the Dao sects, was already enough to establish a sect and be the ancestor. In the past, there were only 8 Yuanying stage masters in the Chunyang Palace. In the demon continent, it could only be called a poor haha. There was no way, there were too many masters, and there were also many rich people. The poor Yuanying stage ancestors, even if they wanted a high-grade devilish bead, they couldn't afford the price. The peak Yuanying stage master who crossed his tribulation Deshang stage was still doing business for many years to save up that fortune, and he invested it all at once. Relatively speaking, the lower 6th grade devilish bead, many people could afford this price. Originally, some people also wanted to find Yang Chen to discuss the purification of the devilish bead in their hands, but before they could find Yang Chen, another woman had already appeared in Yang Chen's room. It was Yang Chen's senior sister, Gong Sunling, who was known as Lu Yun to the outside world. When the beauty reunited, naturally no one would spoil the scenery, everyone could only wait. Gong Sunling was also murderous, it couldn't be helped. The newcomers were all like this. Relatively speaking, in terms of safety, among the women, Gong Sunling was the one Yang Chen was most at ease with. The protection of the mountain river geographical map could definitely effectively ensure the safety of Gong Sunling. Then the rest was to see how Gong Sunling would kill her opponent. The general demon and monster cultivators were fine. If they met Gong Sunling, they might be able to save their lives, but they couldn't escape the fate of being imprisoned in the mountain river geographical map, and the demonized monster only had one word: death. The power of the demonic qi, Yang Chen has repeatedly stressed it. Even Gong Sunling did not dare to easily send the demonized monster with demonic qi to the mountain river geographical map. The original intention of coming to the demon continent was to kill and gain experience, so naturally she had to kill. In a year's time, she had turned the originally gentle and elegant senior sister into a decisive and strong woman. The experience of the demon continent was much more ruthless than that of the immortal falling abyss. Even if Gong's Sunling had experienced the slaughter of the immortal falling abyss, she was still not used to it here. After all, the underground spirit beasts and the demonized monster were two different things. One was a spirit body and the other was a living monster. Whether in terms of cultivation base or ferocity, the underground spirit beasts of the immortal falling abyss could not be compared with the demonized monster beasts of the demon continent. The same 10 days, the same double cultivation, the same 100 gene of high-grade spirit stones given by Yang Chen as pocket money, the same complete relaxation at Yang Chen's place, and adjusting her tense nerves, then Gong's Sunling embarked on the journey of experience again. Next, it was replaced by Sun Qingxue, and 10 days later, it was replaced by Gao Yu. Chapter 10:16. Some people have recognized that Shi Shanshan was Han Mei who was with Yang Chen at that time, and naturally knew that there was more than one woman around Yang Chen. Therefore, looking at Gong's Sunling, Sun Qingxue and Gao Yu taking turns to see Yang Chen, no one was blind enough to come over and spoil the fun. Basically, the 4 women are in the same situation now. After a year of experience, they don't know how many demonic beasts they have killed. And they often encounter a large group of demonic beasts swarming up, so they have to let go of the so-called mercy they used to have and kill them. In this kind of fierce fight, either you die or I die. The techniques of the 4 women have also been greatly simplified. Originally, they might put on some graceful posture from time to time, but now it is purely simplified, and strive to kill in one blow. This is far from what can be done by fighting those sea beasts at sea. The really powerful moves are summed up in life and death battles. Even if there are seniors who teach them hands-on, there are always some unfinished things. But it was different now. With the experience of their seniors, they had a goal and countless fearless sparring partners. Even those with mediocre aptitudes could become experts, not to mention the 4 girls who had astonishing comprehension abilities. Although their cultivation base is still at the early stage of the Yuanying stage, Yang Chen has discovered that all the women have reached the peak of the early stage of the Yuanying stage. He believes that when they meet next time, they will all enter the middle stage of the Yuanying stage. Of course, this kind of growth rate is not particularly fast in the demon continent. With the demonic bead, this kind of heaven-defying thing, people who are twice as fast as the 4 women have appeared, and it doesn't seem special at all. The next meeting with the 4 women was scheduled for 2 years later. The 4 women have now discovered the benefits of training here, and their cultivation base has made a small progress, so they have to move deeper into the demon continent. The next time they met, it would be at another gathering point that was even deeper than this one. Yang Chen didn't say much except to tell the women to be careful and safe. At this point, in fact, there are not many places where Yang Chen can control the 4 women. They were all knowledgeable and assertive women, so they naturally knew what to do. What made the people waiting at the gathering point feel relieved was that Yang Chen did not delay the purification of the devilish bead because of the meeting with the 4 women. When the 3rd woman, that is, Sun Qingxue, left and Gao Yu had not yet arrived, Yang Chen released 5 more demonic beads. This time, it was a mid-rank 4 pill and 4 lower-rank 6 pills. Similarly, both high-end and low-end requirements were taken care of. After 2 consecutive auctions, Yang Chen's upper-grade spirit stones had increased by more than 500 kilograms. After sending Gao Yu away, Yang Chen directly announced to the public that he no longer had any high-grade devilish beads on hand, so he would not auction them for the time being. Moreover, he also had to go out to train, so he would only stay at this gathering point for a few months. 2 years later, he would appear at another gathering point with the 4 women. Although many people were disappointed, there were some experts who could clearly hear the hidden meaning behind those words. So, after seeing that there were no more female visitors, someone found Yang Chen. "I am Lu Ming. I have heard a lot about Grandmaster Yang." The first one to find him was a master of the Deshang stage. He had a light carriage and no attendant. He was wearing a simple green robe. He came to Yang Chen and cupped his hands. He was completely in the posture of visiting a friend. Well said, Senior Lu's presence brings light to my humble dwelling. After some politeness, Yang Chen asked straightforwardly, I don't know what instructions the senior has, just say it. Well, Grandmaster is straightforward, I will not beat around the bush. Lu Ming did not expect Yang Chen to be so straightforward. He was slightly stunned and his face showed joy. The cultivators who wandered in the demon continent killed people without hesitation, but if they were asked to treat people with courtesy, they might be worse. Yang Chen's performance was very much to Lu Ming's liking. However, even if he was not good at etiquette in front of Yang Chen, Lu Ming did not call himself this old man, but this one. I have 2 lower third-grade demonic beads in my possession. I wonder if Grandmaster can help me purify them? I will definitely reward you handsomely. Lu Ming didn't act pretentiously and quickly spoke. As he spoke, he took out the demonic bead. The black demonic bead, without any purification, was spinning on the table in front of the two. This demonic bead has been in Lu Ming's possession for many years. It was by chance that he worked hard and almost lost his life to get such a third-grade demonic bead. However, such a large demonic bead, basically no demon refiner could guarantee that it could be purified to the first grade. Even the second grade was only possible, the most guaranteed effect was the third grade. This made Lu Ming treat it with caution, and he has been collecting it until now. The appearance of Yang Chen made Lu Ming see the opportunity, and he came over tirelessly. Although he didn't get anything at the auction, he witnessed the effect of taking those demonic beads. Needless to say, Yang Chen sold a total of 4 demonic beads higher than the 5th grade, allowing a peak Yuanying stage master to successfully advance to the Deshang stage, allowing 2 masters of the Deshang stage to break through the bottleneck of the Deshang stage, and another one directly allowed a younger generation master of the Deshang stage to jump directly from the Jedan stage to the middle Yuanying stage. Every one of them was extraordinary, and people couldn't help but sigh at the power of this pure demonic bead. Lu Ming was not discouraged if he didn't buy it. As long as Yang Chen was willing to help him purify the one in his hand, he believed that the effect would be better than others. Purifying the demonic bead, it's easy. Yang Chen did not refuse and agreed, it was just a slight delay. Lu Ming on the opposite side immediately understood what Yang Chen wanted to know. In terms of remuneration, does the master want spirit stones, or do you want something else? When Yang Chen agreed, Lu Ming was overjoyed and hurriedly said his own remuneration, if it's spirit stones, I will also pay 600 pounds of high-grade spirit stones. 600 pounds of high-grade spirit stones was already the second highest price among the 4 demonic beads that Yang Chen auctioned. If it was just purification, it was completely justifiable. In this regard, Lu Ming showed his sincerity. What else? Yang Chen didn't care about this number. Now spirit stones were really just a number for Yang Chen. The spirit stones on hand were much more than this number, and he was not interested at all. However, when Lu Ming talked about other things, Yang Chen was also a little moved. Cough cough. Unexpectedly, when Lu Ming heard Yang Chen ask about other things, he blushed, coughed twice first, and then said embarrassedly, I have been in the demon continent for hundreds of years. The original medicinal pills and magic weapon materials have been used up. Now there are only some materials collected from the demon continent with some demonic qi. Chapter 10:17. The materials collected on the demon continent. Yang Chen immediately remembered the fibers he had collected from the demonized vine, which were good things to block the exploration of spiritual awareness, and even the yin-yang heaven burning fire was not burned. Even if it was only the primary yin-yang heaven burning fire, it was also a good thing. Don't worry about the demonic qi, what good things do you have? Yang Chen replied directly and then asked. Lu Ming was stunned, and then immediately realized that he was guessing the young Master Yang with common sense again. Others regard the demonic qi as a danger, but in the eyes of Master Yang, it is not a big problem at all. Thinking of this, he suddenly laughed at himself. I think too much, master, forgive me. Lu Ming quickly apologized, and then began to report what he had: Luo Chen black jade, heavenly fragrant tum wood, 9 nether flying dust. Wait! Yang Chen suddenly stopped, and then asked curiously, what is this 9 nether flying dust? Seeing that Yang Chen was interested in one of the things, Lu Ming was even more spirited, hurriedly opened the Qiankuan bag, took out a black gourd, opened the gourd mouth, and immediately flew out a cloud of black dust. This cloud of black dust, as soon as it was released, almost occupied the space of the entire room, gathered and did not disperse, and the room was immediately filled with the aura of demonic qi. Yang Chen reached out and grabbed it in the air, and when he took a closer look, he immediately knew what it was. This 9 nether flying dust belongs to a kind of refining material of the 6th earth attribute. He had never seen it before, but the feeling of holding it in his hand was not low grade, and it was a good thing for refining magic weapons. Among the yin-yang 5 elements flying sword, Yang Chen has never had a 6th earth flying sword. Now that there is such a gourd of 9 nether flying dust, he can consider refining a 6th earth flying sword. How much of this 9 nether flying dust? Yang Chen asked Lu Ming with a few fine dust in his hand. There are a few hundred jin. Lu Ming was stunned and replied subconsciously. Well, I want this 9 nether flying dust. Is senior willing to part with it? Yang Chen immediately made a decision and asked quickly. Ah! Lu Ming was almost knocked out by the pie that fell from the sky. Master Yang didn't want spirit stones, but wanted the 9 nether flying dust? Is there such a good thing? The 9 nether flying dust was originally a good thing, but after being contaminated by the demonic qi, it basically became useless and belonged to the level of trash. Originally, it had not been easy for Lu Ming to obtain the 9 hell flying dust. After putting in a lot of effort, he discovered that no one was interested in it. Furthermore, he could not use it, so it had become a useless existence. Now, Yang Chen actually wanted to use the 9 nether flying dust as a reward for purifying the demonic baleful bead. This sudden change made Lu Ming have an abnormally unreal feeling. He stayed where he was, and besides an sound, there was no other reaction. Senior? Senior? Yang Chen waited for a while. Seeing that Lu Ming was still maintaining the shape, he couldn't help but be surprised. He whispered twice, which woke Lu Ming up from his stupor. No problem, no problem. As a master of the Deshang stage, Lu Ming had not lost his composure like this for a long time. He did not expect to lose so much face in front of Yang Chen. But now he couldn't care less, and hurriedly agreed first. A few hundred pounds of 9 nether flying dust that no one wanted at all was worth 600 pounds of high-grade spirit stones. This business was not a loss for him. Seeing Lu Ming's expression of surprise, as if he had picked up a gold ingot while walking, Yang Chen smiled slightly in his heart and did not comment. You abandoned it like a pair of shoes. I regarded it as a treasure. There was no loss or gain. The black gourd containing the 9 nether flying dust was directly handed over to Yang Chen. Lu Ming enthusiastically told Yang Chen how to control the gourd to collect the 9 nether flying dust. The gourd was regarded as a gift from the 9 nether flying dust and was also given to Yang Chen. Others were afraid of the demonic qi and did not dare to explore the use of this 9 nether flying dust, but Yang Chen was not afraid at all. Just for a while, Yang Chen found that this 9 nether flying dust could fully absorb the demonic qi. What made Yang Chen most tempted was that there was no upper limit to the absorption of the demonic qi by the 9 nether flying dust. Now this gourd of 9 nether flying dust has almost always maintained the concentration of the demonic qi when it was just collected, but after it was taken out of the gourd, it was only for such a short time that it began to slowly absorb the surrounding demonic qi. The first to bear the brunt was the aura on the devilish bead left by Lu Ming. However, this kind of absorption speed was too slow, so slow that it was almost imperceptible. Even Lu Ming, a master of the Deshang stage, could not detect it. If it weren't for Yang Chen's keen spiritual awareness, and the fact that he has been dealing with the demonic qi recently, even Yang Chen would not be able to discover this. After sending away Lu Ming, there were several other masters of the Deshang stage who had also arrived but did not buy the devilish bead. Each of them had 1 or 2 high-grade devilish beads in their hands, and they all wanted Yang Chen to help them purify it. Later, Yang Chen was not polite. After asking what good materials they had, he asked them to use the materials to compensate for part of the remuneration, and then he added some spirit stones. Moreover, Yang Chen had an additional request. After finishing the business of the 4 masters of the Deshang stage, Yang Chen would go out to gain experience, so he asked them to block the people who came later. Of course, Yang Chen also said that after 2 years at another gathering point, he would naturally do business again and told everyone not to worry and to wait patiently. The masters of the Deshang stage in this gathering point have been wiped out by Yang Chen. Even if those Yuanying stage masters were reluctant, but under the eyes of the 4 masters of the Deshang stage, they had to give up the plan to find Yang Chen in vain. Absorbing the demonic qi of these devilish beads did not take too much time for Yang Chen. However, in order to create a false impression for them, Yang Chen stayed in the room for more than 2 months before he came out. After absorbing the demonic qi of these devilish beads, the demonized vine phantom in his sea of consciousness swelled a lot, but it still did not fully recover to the original size of more than 10 feet. After Yang Chen wrapped it with his spiritual awareness, he ignored it for the time being. In the extra time, Yang Chen was not idle. He has been studying the 9 secluded flying dust. To refine the flying sword, but also to use this material that he had never heard of, it was natural to study the material thoroughly before he could start. Fortunately, the 9 secluded flying dust was hundreds of pounds, and each time he took a small handful to study, it did not cost much. 2 months was enough for Yang Chen to understand it thoroughly. The characteristic of the 9 secluded flying dust that could absorb demonic qi gave Yang Chen a new idea. If the flying sword was built according to this method, the power of this 6th earth flying sword would be the strangest of the great Yin and Yang 5 elements flying sword, and it was also the most elusive one. This new refining method also made Yang Chen himself look forward to it. Chapter 10:18. More than 2 months later, Yang Chen came out of seclusion, and after handing over their devilish bead to everyone, Yang Chen left the gathering point directly and entered the jungle of the demon continent again to continue his own experience. Yang Chen asked the 4 women to progress step by step, and he did the same himself. Although Yang Chen now has enough confidence to go deeper, Yang Chen does not intend to do that. Speaking of which, Yang Chen himself still needs to carry out more killing battles. Whether it is killing immortals on the immortal beheading platform or the underground spirit beasts in the immortal fallen abyss, the opponent stood still and let him wave his knife. The number of beheaded was enough, but he had not experienced the most tragic fighting and melee. Even if Yang Chen had participated in some similar battles in his previous life, the number of times was few, and it did not happen every day. Like the demon continent, where he had to be careful almost every day or even every moment, he had to be careful of being surrounded by demonic beasts, and after being surrounded, he had to do his best to kill the demonic beasts and escape safely. Yang Chen had not encountered such a situation even when the battles in the immortal world were the most frequent. There were not many such opportunities, and it was rare for Yang Chen to be reborn, so naturally, he had to take advantage of it. The demon continent was a hard enough whetstone. Before Yang Chen really became a powerful master, it would sharpen some things on him, and at the same time, it would also sharpen some unnecessary and cumbersome things. This was also the purpose of the experience. Deep into the jungle, Yang Chen casually found a direction to go deeper. The demon continent was big enough, and there were enough creatures in the jungle. There were countless plants and animals that Yang Chen had never seen before, which made Yang Chen sigh at how big the world was and how full of wonders there were. Even with the experience of Yang Chen, who had lived a life, there were more than 90% of things that he didn't know. Whether it was in the mortal world, the spiritual world, or the immortal world, it was impossible to have omniscient people. No matter how powerful a person was, they would still have their weaknesses and areas that they did not understand. Even someone as powerful as Taishang Laojun was the same, there was no exception. Yang Chen couldn't even name the countless demonized demonic beasts, let alone know their attack patterns and characteristics. Encountering such an unfamiliar enemy, Yang Chen could only rely on his judgment to adapt to the situation. Yang Chen had never called out the Golden Bell protection. It was a trump card that would only be used in the case of a death threat. In the case of ordinary injuries or even serious injuries, Yang Chen would not use the Golden Bell to resist. This forced him to rely on his own reaction, his own swordsmanship, and his own judgment to face the enemy. In a short period of time, this kind of high-intensity fighting may not be effective, but it will put Yang Chen in danger all the time. But after a long time, when all this becomes an instinctive reaction, Yang Chen's strength will rise to another level. Yang Chen went deep into the jungle to fight for almost 4 or 5 months. Every day, he dealt with the demonized demonic beasts that came from all directions, which could almost be described as exhausted. Several times, he even had to take the initiative to face the attacks of some demonized demonic beasts, using non-fatal injuries in exchange for a glimmer of life. Fortunately, Yang Chen's healing medicinal pills were very effective, and he could always stabilize his injuries at the critical moment and then recover quickly. Otherwise, the drag of the injury alone could drag Yang Chen to death. The situation seemed to be very abnormal. When Yang Chen was in the jungle before, the frequency of the demonized demonic beasts was not so high. Of course, it was in the edge area, where the demonic energy was the thinnest, and the level of the demonic beasts was not very high, but the current situation was obviously abnormal. Almost every once in a while, there would be a demonic beast rushing to Yang Chen's side. Sometimes when Yang Chen was attacked by a group of demonic beasts, another group would come, forcing Yang Chen to have 120% of his spirit and barely cope with these endless demonic beasts. Occasionally, during a few breaks, Yang Chen released his spiritual awareness to explore, and within hundreds of miles, there was no other person. But Yang Chen could be sure that in a farther place, someone must be staring at him. Even Yang Chen suspected that these people might be the masters of the Deshang stage, who asked him to purify the demonic bead. He could only blame his ability to purify the demonic bead was too amazing. The pure golden demonic bead completely improved his cultivation base without any side effect. Whether it was the Dao sex or the monster race, they were all coveted, not to mention the cultivators of the demon sex. They could not wait to replace it. Under such circumstances, the idea of playing with Yang Chen became inevitable. What could be more pleasing than controlling such a demonic refiner in his hands? Not only could he get a lot of wealth through the demonic refiner, but he could also continuously provide the demonic bead he needed, killing many birds with one stone. They couldn't make a move in the gathering point, so they must wait until they get out of the gathering point before making plans. As a demonic refiner, his cultivation base was definitely not good, which was almost the common problem of the demonic refiner in the demon continent. As a demonic refiner, even if Yang Chen's purification method was brilliant, it was impossible to get out of this range. This could also explain why Yang Chen let his 4 women go out to experience, while he stayed in the gathering point for a few months. Generally speaking, there must be a strong backer behind the superb demonic refiner. To put it nicely, it was a backer. To put it bluntly, it was actually being controlled by the so-called backer. However, even those backers would not force the demonic refiner too much. Otherwise, who would give them the demonic bead to purify? These people must have the same idea. they would never make a move easily. They would only use these demonic beasts to force Yang Chen into a desperate situation, and then at the critical moment, they would save Yang Chen from the abyss of water and fire. Yang Chen would be grateful and would naturally turn to them. The plan was a good plan, and Yang Chen also objectively provided convenience for these people. The materials he received for refining the 9 secluded flying dust, each of them had a spiritual awareness imprint on them. Because the materials were contaminated with demonic qi, Yang Chen did not want Xiao Tian to swallow these materials to devour those spiritual awareness imprints. This made it possible for those masters to track the whereabouts of Yang Chen. From the beginning of entering the demon continent, Xiao Tian was very resistant to the demonic qi and had been staying in the medicine garden. Yang Chen was also unwilling to force Xiao Tian to participate in the experience at this time, so he inevitably left this flaw. There should be people in several directions, otherwise the demonic beasts would not come from several directions. However, although Yang Chen had discovered this, his behavior did not change, but he worked harder to adapt to all this. There were so many free laborers looking for the demonic beasts to rush over. Was there a better sparring partner than this? Chapter 10:19. This kind of day did not last too long. When Yang Chen had maintained this state for 8 months, someone finally couldn't help it and was ready to force it. There was no way, in 8 months, although Yang Chen had gone deeper, and the demonized monsters he encountered were more and more powerful. The lowest level was in the middle Yuanying stage, and the average level was even close to the realm of the late Yuanying stage, but Yang Chen never collapsed, nor did he enter the kind of life-and-death situation where he was in a critical situation. On the contrary, Yang Chen was becoming more and more skilled. In the face of more and more demonic beasts, Yang Chen was honed in this kind of tide of demonic beasts. He was ruthless and merciless. He would leave as soon as he touched them. His moves were almost as concise as they could be. A few months ago, although Yang Chen was also very sharp, there was still a little flaw, resulting in low efficiency. But after a few months, groups of demonic monsters in the middle and late Yuanying stage could no longer do anything to Yang Chen. At the beginning, Yang Chen still suffered a lot of injuries, but in recent months, Yang Chen has rarely been injured. Even if he was injured, he would take the initiative to send some parts that were not fatal or would not cause serious injuries to the attack of the demonic monsters, and the counterattack was even sharper. Usually, the price of Yang Chen's injury was the death of at least 5 or 6 demonic monsters that were attacking Yang Chen. If this goes on, Yang Chen will become more and more powerful, and their plans will become more and more impossible to implement. Everyone knew the existence of the opposite, but they had the same idea and tacitly cooperated. Now someone finally couldn't help it and jumped out. A wave of hundreds of demonic monsters in the late Yuanying stage directly surrounded Yang Chen. In the crazy attack, Yang Chen's body rushed left and right, and the blood demon vine sword in his hand was pulled out from the monster again and again, leaving only a monster's body that was sucked dry. However, after all, it was a late nascent soul stage demonic creature. No matter how relaxed Yang Chen looked, it had consumed a lot of energy. When Yang Chen finally got rid of the last monster, he couldn't help but feel exhausted. He sat on the ground and quickly adjusted his breathing. However, Yang Chen had just sat down, and his breath had not yet taken 2 or 3 breaths, when he heard a familiar voice in his ear. Grandmaster Yang, good skills. Senior Li is so patient. Yang Chen sat on the ground and had no intention of standing up. He was still panting as if he had accepted his fate. You knew it was me? The Senior Li in Yang Chen's mouth was the only Deshang stage Master Li Tianxue who gave Yang Chen 2 third-grade devilish beads. At this moment, he was slightly surprised and seemed to be unable to believe that Yang Chen had guessed him from the beginning. It's not hard to guess. Yang Chen was still sitting on the ground, leaning his body against a big tree next to him. He tilted his head and looked at Li Tianxue standing there. he said with a forced smile. In fact, in addition to you, Senior, several of them have a share, but Senior has always felt that his luck is good, so he came out first. Hearing this, Li Tianxue suddenly looked at Yang Chen with admiration. As Yang Chen said, they were all in the demon continent for hundreds of years. From the Yuanying stage to the present Deshang stage, only he had the luck to get 2 third-grade devilish beads, 1 lower third grade and 1 middle third grade. He also always felt that his luck was good. For cultivators, this illusory blessing was very important. People who had no blessing or shallow blessing, even if their qualifications were good, their results would not be too high. Just as Li Tianxue thought, why could he find 2 of such high grade at the same time under the same conditions, and others only had 1? This fully explained that Li Tianxue's luck was better than others, and his blessing was deeper than others. Therefore, in the face of such a situation, he decided to make the first move. Maybe with good luck, he could directly take down Yang Chen and make him surrender. Grandmaster, you still don't have to think about luck. Li Tianxue looked at Yang Chen, who was sitting there gasping for breath, shook his head slightly and said, "Don't you feel tired from the battle just now? I accidentally arranged a small formation to disperse spiritual power here, so the Grandmaster still doesn't have to think about absorbing spiritual power from the surroundings. Of course, before I achieve my goal, I will not give the Grandmaster a chance to absorb spirit stones to recover." At such a close distance, it was easy for a master of the Deshang stage to trap a junior in the Yuanying stage. "I don't need luck." Yang Chen leaned against the tree, looked at Li Tianxue with a smile and said, "Anyway, you won't kill me anyway, and this kind of coercion is also an opportunity for Senior Lu and the others, isn't it?" Yang Chen's current situation was simply too in line with the edge of life and death crisis. At this time, as long as someone jumped out to rescue Yang Chen, would Yang Chen not be grateful, immediately call him a benefactor, and kneel on the ground? Li Tianxue's face changed slightly, and he seemed to think of this possibility. However, he did not panic. Instead, he laughed. "Grandmaster Yang is indeed brilliant. Unfortunately, you still missed one point. Do you think I would let them approach me so easily?" Without waiting for Yang Chen to say anything, Li Tianxue had already pointed to the surroundings and said with a smile, "In the surrounding 10 miles, outside the edge, it is the demonic gathering formation that I have arranged. The demonic energy is richer than any place they have experienced. The 3 of them are demonic cultivators, and they dare not touch it at will. Senior really has no room for error." When Yang Chen heard this, he couldn't help but look at Li Tianxue in a different light. Others were generally killing and practicing here, and few would study the demonic energy. But the senior in front of him could study the formation, arrange the demonic gathering formation, and gather the demonic energy. It was really brilliant. But this younger generation junior still doesn't understand. Since senior's research on the demonic energy is so deep, why do you want this younger generation junior to help refine the demonic bead? Yang Chen really didn't understand this point, so he immediately asked face to face. "This old man has only studied how to condense the demonic energy, but I can't expel the demonic energy." Li Tianxue did not hide it and directly said the reason, "And I can only condense the demonic energy that dissipates from the demon continent, but I can't condense the demonic energy on the demonic bead. Do you understand what I mean?" This younger generation junior understands. Yang Chen nodded with a smile and looked at Li Tianxue and said, "Senior, how about we discuss it?" "Discuss what?" Li Tianxue was taken aback and immediately asked. "Senior, teach this younger generation junior the formation you condense the demonic energy, and this younger generation junior will not pursue the matter of you scheming against this younger generation junior. What do you think, Senior?" Chapter 10:20. What did you say? Pursue? After Li Tianxue listened to Yang Chen's words, he was stunned directly, and then as if he had heard a big joke, he laughed again. This time when he laughed, Li Tianxue completely did not have the temperament that a master of the Deshang stage should have. He laughed forward and backward, like a village man watching a funny play. The laughter lasted for half an incense stick of time before it stopped. Then Li Tianxue stopped laughing and looked at Yang Chun like a cat playing with a mouse. He held back his laughter and asked very seriously, "If this old man doesn't want to, then Grandmaster Yang, how do you plan to deal with it? I'm afraid it will hurt our friendship." Yang Chen was very disappointed and shook his head. His head inadvertently looked around, and his mouth faintly replied, "I'm curious." Li Tianxue stared at Yang Chen's face and confirmed that what he saw and heard was correct. Yang Chen did say so, and then he asked somewhat puzzled, "How can you do this?" "Just because of this." Yang Chen smiled and raised his hand, and a black mist suddenly burst out, firmly enveloping the space where the two were. Suddenly, the surrounding was dark and nothing could be seen. Li Tianxue knew that Yang Chen held a black gourd in his hand, but did not expect that when the black gourd was opened, it would burst out a black mist. Although it obscured the line of sight, for a master of the Deshang stage, was this meaningful? Opening his spiritual awareness, Li Tianxue was about to explore the surrounding movement, but suddenly found that his own spiritual awareness could only penetrate less than 1 foot away, and the surrounding was empty. It seemed that suddenly, he had come from a dense forest full of trees to an unknown space with nothing. This sudden change surprised Li Tianxue. What kind of magic weapon was this black mist? It could even make him, a master of the Deshang stage, unable to penetrate it. The most terrible thing that people face is actually not something called a name, but the unknown. Because of the unknown, you don't know what will happen, so you will be afraid. Now Li Tianxue was in the same situation. He suddenly appeared in an unknown place, and he actually began to feel a trace of fear. But after all, he was a master of the Great Ascension stage. Moreover, he had been training in the land of the demons and demons for hundreds of years. What kind of dangerous situation had he not encountered? This horror was just a feeling, and it could not make him retreat in any way. Schwa, the moment an accident occurred, a wheel of light instantly appeared beside Li Tianxue. It was a flying shield that he had meticulously refined. It flew around his body at high speed, ready to receive any possible attack at any time. Then, the two flying swords flew out from 2 different directions and slashed at the void. This was the natal flying sword that Li Tianxue had meticulously refined. Moreover, it was a double sword. Even if he couldn't see or use his divine sense to detect any enemy, he still had to seize the initiative to attack first and take the initiative. The flying sword slashed through the air. It was as though it had struck something. It felt soft and powerless. The feedback from the flying sword surprised Li Tianxue again. He had no idea what was going on. Because he still didn't know where he was, Li Tianxue didn't even dare to move easily. The sudden change in space, the biggest possibility in this situation was that he was trapped in some kind of formation. Nothing had happened now, but once he moved at will, it was likely to trigger an attack from the formation. Li Tianxue, who had rich combat experience, did not know that he had now entered an error in his thinking. He always thought that he would be plotted against by Yang Chen, but he did not expect that he was still standing in the same place, and Yang Chen did not use any formation. The black mist was the reward that Lu Ming gave to Yang Chen, the 9 nether flying dust. What prevented his divine sense from exploring was the fibers left by Yang Chen after he burned the demonized vine. Originally, he intended to refine a few protective robes to isolate the divine sense for the 4 women, but it was not finished yet and it had been used here. Li Tianxue's flying sword was cut on these fibers. Even the yin-yang heaven-burning fire at this time couldn't do anything to the fibers, let alone the flying sword. The flying sword was cut, but it only made the fibers sway slightly, without the slightest effect. In the 9 nether flying dust, there was a high concentration of demonic energy. Li Tianxue did not dare to act rashly, and he was greatly surprised by this. It took him almost 100 years to find a formation that could condense the demonic energy, and it could only be condensed to a certain extent. Yang Chen was young, he didn't know what method he used, but he could condense the demonic energy so easily. In the darkness, Li Tianxue suddenly felt something waved, but after a careful exploration, he found nothing. While he was puzzled, a problem about the use of demonic energy that had troubled him for many years suddenly popped up in his mind, and his eyes lit up. It seemed that a golden path suddenly appeared, sweeping away the confusion of the past. If this method worked, the endless demonic energy on the demon continent would be controlled and used by Li Tianxue. What was the Desheng stage? After absorbing enough demonic energy, even a master who was about to ascend would not be Li Tianxue's opponent. In any case, this demonic energy could induce the heart's devil. This itself was a sharp weapon, no one could hide from it. This discovery made Li Tianxue feel that this little trouble of Yang Chen was a blessing in disguise for him. Now even if there was no Yang Chen was no longer meaningful to him. No matter how powerful Yang Chen was, he could only purify the devilish bead, but he was now able to use the demonic energy, and there was no need to purify the demonic energy of the devilish bead at all. Here, Li Tianxue's confidence was inflated. Over there, he had already put it into action, the spiritual power of his whole body was running, and he began to absorb the demonic energy madly. What's more, there was even a slightly smaller devilish bead in his hand, which looked like a 6th grade upper grade, and he swallowed it into his abdomen without hesitation. The scene in front of him brightened, but he returned to the original place. Li Tianxue was even more confident, and regardless of Yang Chen beside him, he began to cultivate on his own. However, this situation of certainty only lasted for less than half a stick of incense. Li Tianxue, who was full of confidence, made a sharp scream, the whole person jumped up like a madman, the light shield flew around his body frantically, and the 2-life source flying sword also slashed in all directions, as if he was facing a powerful enemy. Yang Chen had just retreated a little, just less than 10 feet away from Li Tianxue. Seeing this situation, he took a few steps back and got further and further back. Li Tianxue's madness lasted for almost half an hour, and more than half an hour was completely in full attack and defense. Even if he was a master of the Desheng stage, he could not withstand such consumption, and finally his body softened and he sat down. Chapter 10:21. 10 miles away, the other 3 masters who were blocked by the demonic chi formation arranged by Li Tianxue were also monitoring this side with their spiritual awareness. Suddenly discovering Li Tianxue's abnormality, they were suddenly shocked. In 3 directions, they didn't even discuss with each other, they turned around and ran at the same time, like rabbits that had been shot by an arrow. A master of the Desheng stage suddenly became like that. It was absolutely impossible for them to believe that this was an accident. The most likely explanation was that he encountered a master who could not be seen by his eyes and could not be detected by his spiritual awareness. Of course, this could not explain why he would crazily absorb the demonic chi and swallow the unpurified demonic bead. However, even Li Tianxue has become like that. If they ran slower, maybe they would be the next one. No one saw Yang Chen's movements, and no one could know Yang Chen's movements. In this series of changes, Yang Chen just gently stroked Li Tianxue with the phantom of the demonized vine in his sea of consciousness at the right time. Although he was also from the Dao sects, Li Tianxue obviously could not resist the attack of the demonized vine. This kind of attack was on the spiritual level, thoroughly stimulating the most desired part of everyone's emotions, creating a false satisfaction. In layman's terms, it was the most straightforward way of triggering one's inner demons, causing the person being attacked to go berserk. For Yang Chen, who had a strong will and had been attacked by the demonized vine many times, he was almost used to it. Naturally, it was not a big deal, but the guy who was just an ordinary experience on the demon continent was not so lucky. The heart demon directly targeted the part of his most proud demonic qi research, which made Li Tianxue's self-confidence extremely inflated. Silently, he began to absorb the demonic qi on his own initiative, swallowing the unpurified demonic bead, which led to the further invasion of the demonic qi, and the cultivation deviation was inevitable. Li Tianxue, who was full of illusions, naturally madly attacked those enemies who did not exist and were jealous of him until his spiritual power was exhausted, and then he could no longer recover. Even if he fell to the ground, Li Tianxue's eyes were still full of fighting spirit, and his whole person had been immersed in the illusion and could not extricate himself. Shaking his head slightly, Yang Chen walked to Li Tianxue's side and easily took off his cosmos bracelet. Li Tianxue's hobby was also very special. His Qianquan bag was made into a bracelet. It was a very strange habit. Xiao Chen opened the universe bracelet. There were many things inside. After checking them one by one, he soon found dozens of jade strip. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, he immediately saw the contents of the jade slip. Some of the jade slips contained cultivation techniques, while others contained pill formulas. However, there were about a dozen or so jade slips that recorded the results of Li Tianxue's research into devil qi, including the spell formation that could condense devil qi. Why bother? Why bother? Yang Chen shook his head again at Li Tianxue, who was lying limply on the ground. Even if someone with a higher cultivation came, they wouldn't be able to save him in a short amount of time. Not to mention, Yang Chen had never thought of treating him from the beginning. The spell formation that condensed the devil qi did not only have this simple function, it also integrated a series of means such as protection, illusion, and so on. It could also be regarded as a comprehensive formation. For such a long time, none of the demonic beasts had come over. It was estimated that they were blocked by those formations. This Li Tianxue did have two skills in studying the devil qi, and his research on the devil qi was indeed deep enough. He himself may also be a side cultivator of the formation, which was integrated together. On the demon continent, such a combination could definitely occupy a lot of advantages. It was no wonder that he had reached the Deshang stage and had gained a lot. It was not just because of luck. Yang Chen has taken a Peiyuan pill and quickly recovered his spirit power. In his current experience, not only did he not use the golden bell, but even the yellow turban strongman body refining technique was firmly controlled by himself. Otherwise, the attacks of those demonic beasts could not cause any harm to Yang Chen. Even so, Yang Chen would at most have some physical pain, and even his bones would not be hurt. But it was undeniable that the purpose of Yang Chen's experience had been achieved, and the effect was very good. Just now, the joint attack of the 9 secluded flying dust and the demonized vine phantom made Yang Chen suddenly discover a good idea. When refining the 6th earth flying sword, if he could refine the demonized vine phantom as a tool spirit, the combination of the devil qi and the heart demon attack, he believed that the combination of the two would definitely be a good weapon that would make many opponents have a headache. Doing it, Yang Chen would not delay. When he got the 9 secluded flying dust, he did not refine it directly because he did not have the idea of refining the flying sword. Now that he had this idea, Yang Chen of course planned to start work immediately. Li Tianxue's formation could just be learned and applied, giving Yang Chen a safe place in the dense forest. First, he found a suitable place, and then he used the materials in Li Tianxue's interspatial bracelet to set up the formation. After that, Yang Chen plunged into the process of refining the 6th earth flying sword. The 6th earth, to put it bluntly, was the Yin earth, fertile and moist soil, and the dust in the air also belonged to this type. The 9 secluded flying dust obviously belonged to the dust series, and it could absorb devil qi, which was in line with the characteristics of the 6th earth that could absorb water vapor. The demonized vine's main body must belong to the plant series, and it was the 2nd wood, which was also of the Yin attribute. Moreover, the demonized vine's efficiency of gathering devil chi was much higher than the 9 secluded flying dust. Using the demonized vine phantom as the main body, it was no longer a clash of attributes, and there was no problem of the second wood disturbing the sixth earth. After all, it was just the phantom's thoughts, and it had no attribute. But when the two were combined, it was like a good rain after a long drought, a match made in heaven. In addition to slowly absorbing devil chi, the 9 secluded flying dust's biggest feature was that it could accommodate devil chi. The addition of the demonized vine phantom could increase the speed of the 9 secluded flying dust's absorption of devil chi. This was not the end of it. The demonized vine's characteristic was that it could condense devil chi. The huge devilish bead in Yang Chen's interspatial bag was the evidence. A flying sword that could quickly absorb devil chi and could also condense devil chi. After attacking the opponent, in addition to the damage brought by the flying sword, it could also trigger the terrifying effect of the opponent's inner demon. This flying sword had not yet been formed, but it had already made Yang Chen salivate. A few 100 kilograms of 9 secluded flying dust was enough for Yang Chen to successfully refine a sixth earth flying sword. However, Yang Chen was now a little worried about whether he should refine a standard sword in the traditional way or refine it into something else. One had to know that the 9 secluded flying dust could change its shape at will. If it was not designed according to the shape of a sword, strictly speaking, it could not be called a flying sword, but another magic weapon. It felt a bit inconsistent with his great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword. Chapter 10:22. Thinking of this problem, Yang Chen was somewhat uncertain, but soon Yang Chen was no longer worried about this. Why bother? Whether it was the flying sword or other forms, it was just a form of magic weapon in the end. The immortal beheading blade could not really accommodate only the flying sword and not other forms. There was no need to cause flaws in his mind because of this. He was surrounded by a strong demonic aura. It would be stupid to go mad for this small problem. However, after all, he hesitated for a while before starting. His mood had not completely calmed down, and he needed a channel to vent. As a result, the young sect master of Taishanmen, Li Liheng, became Yang Chen's punching bag with glory and responsibility. Li Liheng almost went mad last time, and now he had to go out to gain experience. No way, no cultivator can escape this process. Even the sect master of Taishanmen, the largest sect in Dao sects, has a time when his cultivation base is stuck in a bottleneck. It is not possible to have no heart demons. Fortunately, with the identity of the young sect master of Taishanmen, he could almost be said to be unimpeded everywhere in Dao sects. Wherever he went, people would flatter him, and he was even more glorious than in the sect. This made Li Liheng's mood a lot better. It seemed that going out to gain experience was not something difficult to accept. In particular, Yang Lan, this guy, was clever and able to do things. He served him well on the road, and his speech was also very pleasant. In particular, what made him most comfortable was that Yang Lan often found some beautiful female cultivators to serve him, which made Li Liheng simply happy. However, Yang Lan was not without a small calculation. Every time the female cultivators were found, they would accompany the young sect master for 10 days at most, and then they would be taken away by Yang Lan. Li Liheng naturally understood that this was because he was afraid that these female cultivators would compete with Yang Lan's sister, Yang Lan, which was human nature. And from the bottom of his heart, Li Liheng was still very satisfied with Yang Lan's approach. He was a guy who liked new things. Those women were just playthings, and they had not yet reached the point where he was tempted. With Yang Lan helping him deal with it, he enjoyed the taste of leaning on the red and cuddling. Now Li Liheng was eager to contact Senior Lu Fengzi immediately and prove his identity. Otherwise, if he continued to be suspected, his future could be imagined. In this state of mind, indulging himself with some female cultivators was also a way to vent his anger. Fortunately, even though Li Liheng was indulging in pleasure, He did not forget to cultivate at a fixed time every day. He knew where all of this came from, so he didn't dare to slack off. This kind of attitude won the approval of the elders who were secretly protecting him. Although his actions were absurd, it was enough for him to know what his main goal was. Cultivators did not need to care too much. As long as it was not forced and both parties were willing, anything was fine. After enjoying the taste of a female rogue cultivator, Li Liheng suddenly felt the familiar aura of Senior Lu Fengzi while he was cultivating. "Greetings, Senior." This time, Li Liheng didn't wait for Yang Chen to ask and took the initiative to greet the senior. Then, he immediately told him the secret communication method that the sect master had told him. Yang Chen quietly listened to Li Liheng's words that seemed to be very reasonable to meet and greet, but it was very unreasonable on this occasion. He did not speak from beginning to end. After Li Liheng finished speaking, Senior Lu Fengzi didn't respond, and Li Liheng was also stunned. What's going on? What he said was the identification code of the peripheral high-level personnel of Taishanmen. How could Senior Lu Fengzi not say a word and still look at him coldly? Could it be that the code was wrong? Otherwise, how could Senior Lu Fengzi's face be so serious, and the pressure he felt was getting greater and greater, and he almost couldn't hold it? Fortunately, this was a spiritual awareness connection. If it was a face-to-face situation, maybe Li Liheng would be directly pressed to the ground by the pressure released by Yang Chen. Senior, this is the highest-level communication code of Taishanmen. This younger generation junior is not pretending. Li Liheng was shocked and hurriedly explained to Yang Chen. At this time, he couldn't care about anything else. He had to verify his identity first. Sure enough, after saying this sentence, the pressure on Senior Lu Fengzi's side was a lot less. At least Li Liheng could face it calmly, and he didn't even dare to sweat. There is no sign of your mind lying. Senior Lu Fengzi finally spoke, and the mountain-like pressure just now disappeared without a trace. Li Liheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that Senior was just checking whether he was lying or not. Senior was really cautious. But on the other hand, if it was him, and a person who had never been in contact with said this code in front of him, he would also investigate it and would not easily believe it. It was normal for Senior to do this. Yang Chen was also a little stunned at the time. He just wanted to scare this kid and vent some of his anger, but he didn't expect that he would know such a big secret. The code words in Li Liheng's mouth, Yang Chen remembered firmly. This kind of confidential thing, maybe it would be useful one day. Well, looking at your recent appearance, it seems that you have made some progress. What happened? Senior Lu Fengzi's attitude relaxed, and Li Liheng immediately felt like a spring breeze, indescribably relaxed. Listening to Senior Lu Fengzi's words of concern, Li Liheng was almost moved to tears. Fortunately, the set of code left by the sect was also useful in the spiritual world. Otherwise, if his identity was suspected by Senior Lu Fengzi, it would be a disaster. Even if the senior didn't say it in his heart, as long as there were 1 or 2 mistakes in the things passed on to him, it was enough to destroy his life. Now, the sky was finally clear after the rain, and there was no need to worry about the senior's trouble. In the future, he could live a high position and powerful life as a young master. In front of him, it was simply a smooth road. A few days ago, Junior suddenly had some restlessness in his heart, so he came out to gain experience. Until now, I have some understanding. Although he was happy, Li Liheng still answered the senior's question meticulously. This was Li Liheng's attitude. He respected the senior, and he must make Senior Lu Fengzi satisfied with him. Oh? So that's how it is. Senior Lu Fengzi nodded slightly, and also seemed to be suddenly enlightened. You can solve the inner demon, no wonder your cultivation is so strong. Congratulations, you are worth teaching. Senior, Junior has a presumptuous request. I hope Senior can try to solve my doubts. Li Liheng saw that this was a rare opportunity, so he hurriedly asked Senior Lu Fengzi for advice. What's the problem? Senior Lu Fengzi was in a good mood, and he didn't mind at all. Chapter 10:23. This junior's spiritual awareness is in trouble. I have been relying on the spirit congealing pill. Li Liheng began to talk, as if he had found an elder he could confide in. He poured out all his troubles to Li Liheng. Li Liheng also had tremendous pressure in his heart. In the sect, everything was maintained on the basis of his cultivation of the cross-border spiritual awareness cultivation method. Even when he was appointed as the young sect master at the beginning, Li Liheng himself didn't know why. At that time, like others, he secretly guessed that he was the illegitimate child of sect Master Li. Later, he gradually discovered that sect Master Li did not take special care of him, and other people never treated him as a young sect master, which made Li Liheng have some doubts. Finally, when the clouds cleared and the moon was seen, the cultivation of the cross-border spiritual awareness cultivation method had a small achievement, and when he contacted Senior Lu Fengzi, everything changed dramatically. From power to resources and even the usefulness of speaking, there were qualitative changes. Li Liheng suddenly understood why he became the young sect master. It was just a tradition left behind by the previous sect. If Li Liheng couldn't succeed in his cultivation, it would not take many years for him to be abolished from the position of young sect master and become an ordinary disciple of Taishanmen. In this case, it was impossible for Li Liheng to say that there was no pressure, especially knowing that his spirit-congealing pill was exchanged from Yang Chen at a huge price in the sect, and the Foreign Affairs Hall Master of the sect even bowed his head in front of Yang Chen several times. All the hopes seemed to be attached to the young sect master. Even if Li Liheng can still often contact Senior Lu Fengzi, Li Liheng has always been aware of the crisis, especially when the consumption of the spirit-congealing pill is getting larger and larger, and the stock of the sect is getting smaller and smaller. Li Liheng is even more anxious. Old Ancestor, this disciple pleads with the Old Ancestor to give me a way to cure this disciple's spiritual awareness, so that the sect will no longer be blackmailed by that cruel and unscrupulous guy. This disciple will be grateful. After saying his fear and worry, Li Liheng made this request almost in tears. Good child, you have been wronged. When Senior Lu Fengzi passed these words to Li Liheng, Yang Chen almost vomited on the other side. However, he still had to continue acting, so Yang Chen still maintained that kind attitude and comforted him. It seems that this is the source of your inner demon. Hearing Senior Lu Fengzi's caring words, Li Liheng's eyes turned sour and tears almost flowed out. Other people only saw Li Liheng's limitless glory as the young sect master. Who could imagine the depression in his heart? Ancestor, please take pity on me and help me settle this so that the sect will not be controlled by others. Li Liheng was practically begging while crying. His attitude was so sincere that he had even unknowingly changed the way he addressed him from senior to ancestor. Alas! Ancestor Lu Fengzi let out a long sigh, and he seemed to carry a strand of indescribable regret. This long sigh almost made Li Liheng desperate. He only felt that a ladle of cold water was poured from his head to the soles of his feet, and his whole body was cold. Your trouble, in fact, is the right way to solve it with the spirit-congealing pill. Ancestor Lu Fengzi's next words made Li Liheng feel a little hopeful in his heart. Since this is the right way, then there should be a non-right way, right? As long as you endure for a few decades, everything will be calm. At that time, as long as you concentrate on your cultivation with your aptitude, you will be able to communicate with me calmly in a mere 400 or 500 years. Why do you have to be in a hurry? Ancestor Lu Fengzi's words were full of persuasion, and there was no lack of meaning for Li Liheng to endure for a while. Ancestor, you don't know how much property that hateful thief has extorted from my sect for a mere spirit-congealing pill. When Li Liheng heard the meaning of these words, it seemed that there was really another way, and his heart was filled with hope. Seeing that the attitude of the ancestor was still not very firm, he immediately began to lobby and increase his persuasiveness. Oh? Extorting my Taishanmen? Does he want to die? Ancestor Lu Fengzi was just a very ordinary sentence, but it was very domineering, and the confidence in it made Li Liheng feel very comfortable. However, this is obviously not the time to enjoy this, but to arouse the ancestor's common enemy and tell him another way to solve the problem of spiritual awareness, a way to get rid of the control of Yang Chen and not be controlled by others. That thief is the only fifth-grade alchemist in the mortal world. Now the sect can only find him as an alchemist who can refine the spirit-congealing pill. For the sake of the younger generation, the sect has to be extorted by him. Li Liheng gritted his teeth and said, and several seniors of the sect even bow their heads to humiliation, this disciple can't stand it. Li Liheng called him a thief, which made Yang Chen want to curse back in his mind, but unfortunately, this can only exist in his thoughts and cannot be implemented. It's just a spirit-congealing pill. He dares to extort several kinds of 7th-grade fire seeds from the sect, and he also brought an ancient secret medicine garden space full of hundreds of thousands of years old spirit medicine. In order to enhance his persuasiveness, Li Liheng even counted the 7th-grade fire seed to buy the pill recipe to the head of the spirit-congealing pill and told Ancestor Lu Fengzi, "This boy is too much." Sure enough, as Li Liheng had expected, old Ancestor Lu Fengzi was infuriated after hearing this. However, even if he was, Li Liheng wouldn't be able to see it. If he doesn't ascend, then it's fine. Once he ascends to the spiritual world, this old man will personally tear him to pieces. Ancestor Lu Fengzi was already angry. His anger erupted like a volcano, and his surging momentum almost crushed Li Liheng's spiritual awareness into pieces. However, Li Liheng didn't feel any fear at the moment. Although this pressure made him extremely uncomfortable, Li Liheng's heart was full of joy. He successfully provoked the anger of the ancestor. He thought that the ancestor who couldn't do anything to Yang Chen in the mortal world would directly improve his ability and let him deal with Yang Chen. Tell Li Tianqing, let him send someone to kill this guy immediately and take back all the things. The ancestor was really not a person who was bullied, and he was about to take action immediately. Ancestor, the sect master would rather endure humiliation for the sake of this younger generation junior, but he also wants to keep a person who can refine the spirit-congealing pill. His love for this younger generation junior is beyond measure. Li Liheng's affectation was simply good, and people couldn't help but be convinced, as long as this younger generation junior still needs the spirit-congealing pill, I will have to let the thief exploit and extort me. There is another way to solve your problem. Under a series of foreshadowing, Li Liheng finally heard the sound of nature he wanted to hear. Chapter 10:24. This method is somewhat contrary to the tradition of our Taoism. Before saying the specific method, Ancestor Lu Fengzi still pointed out the drawbacks of this method, which was also the reason why he had been unwilling to teach Li Liheng. To put it more seriously, it is like a devil's method, which is against reason and nature. At this time, Li Liheng was smart enough not to say much, but just listened quietly. From the words of the ancestor, he could tell that the ancestor had not made up his mind and was still struggling. If he spoke, it might affect the ancestor's judgment. Once the ancestor took back his decision, wouldn't he lose more than he would gain? I don't recommend you to use this method. Ancestor Lu Fengzi's words were sincere and sincere. His words of persuasion had to be clear from the beginning. You are the young master of the sect with a great future. As the future master, you'd better not delay your great future because of some trivial feelings. I understand. Li Liheng put on a posture of listening to the teachings, and then responded to the ancestor, I will not use it without authorization. I will report to the master first and ask the master to make a decision. Obviously, these words made Ancestor Lu Fengzi feel that Li Liheng respected his master. Finally, he did not say anything more and said the method. In fact, there should be records in the ancient books of the sect. Go back to the Sutras Pavilion of the sect and find a Devil Heart Sutra. It is a trophy obtained by the seniors of the sect when they killed a devil. Some things in it should be useful for your current situation. Thank you, Ancestor. Li Liheng was overjoyed. The Ancestor finally told him the method. How could he not be ecstatic? If it were not for the fact that he had taken a few spirit-congealing pills this time, and was not unable to hold on, Li Liheng would have disconnected from the Ancestor immediately, and then returned to the sect to find the Devil Heart Sutra. What followed was a series of requests. The old Ancestor answered almost everything he knew, but Li Liheng was actually not in the mood for this. After he hurriedly asked all the questions that the elders had asked him, he looked exhausted and cut off the connection. Of course, in addition to his own desire to disconnect, it was also related to the pressure he had suffered from Ancestor Lu Fengzi twice this time. In any case, the result was the same. After disconnecting, young sect master Li Liheng immediately fell unconscious and fell into a deep sleep. This situation had happened many times, and the people who served beside him were not surprised. However, the young master had just fainted, and immediately a Taishaman elder appeared outside the door, which still gave them a shock. The elder that appeared was naturally a core elder that Li Liheng was protecting in secret. Li Liheng's performance just now was completely the same as before. He immediately knew that Li Liheng had successfully contacted Senior Lu Fengzi again. Last time, when Li Liheng was suspected, the sect's higher-ups were also very anxious. They wanted to clear up the misunderstanding, but no one knew if Li Liheng had completed it. Finally, when Li Liheng woke up, the elder chased everyone out of the door and set up a few restrictions before asking about the details. Hearing that Senior Lu Fengzi finally believed Li Liheng, he heaved a long sigh of relief. He could finally put down his worries. It was for the best that Senior Lu Fengzi did not misunderstand. After the mood calmed down, the elder continued to ask about what happened next. At this point, Li Liheng was very good at grasping it. He clearly knew where his power came from, so in front of the sect master and these core elders, he never hid or lied. After listening to Li Liheng's conversation with Senior Lu Fengzi, the elder couldn't help but look at Li Liheng in a different light. Li Liheng knew that the sect had paid a lot for him, and even knew to cry to Senior Lu Fengzi for this. He was indeed loyal to the sect. Especially when he heard Senior Lu Fengzi's analysis that the pressure that Li Liheng was under was the source of his heart demon, he suddenly sighed. The elder had already understood at this time that if he wanted Li Liheng to get rid of his heart demon, it seemed that the only way was to improve his cultivation and get rid of the dependence on the spirit-congealing pill refined by Yang Chun. Even the elder could understand that the reason why Li Liheng wanted to entangle with those female cultivators outside was to relieve this kind of pressure, and to forget everything he had to endure through sect. In this way, it seemed that there was no point in letting Li Liheng continue to gain experience outside, but there was a danger of falling. Return to the mountain. With a wave of his hand, the elder decided Li Liheng's itinerary, interrupted his experience, and rushed back to the sect at the fastest speed. The same words were said again in front of the sect master and several other core elders, and everyone fell into contemplation. Sect Master Li didn't make a decision first. Instead, he asked the elder in charge of the scripture pavilion to find the Free Devil Heart Sutra that had been placed in the scripture pavilion at some point. Everyone could see what kind of cultivation method it was that could make Senior Lu Fengzi say it was so evil. No matter what, they had to wait until they understood it before making a decision. Yang Chun was very happy to get the high-level communication code of the Taishaman. Li Liheng explained very clearly that this was prepared for the high-level spies of the Taishaman. Generally, these people were masters of other sect or influential figures who secretly controlled some sect for the Taishaman. When they ascended, it was impossible to expose their identity, so after ascending, they also needed a set of identification code so that they could recognize the seniors of the mysterious heaven sect in the spiritual world. The code that Li Liheng said was the highest level, which was directly equivalent to the high-level figures of the core elders of the Taishanmen. With this set of code, when they reached the spiritual world, they might be able to deal with the mysterious heaven sect. As for teaching Li Liheng the method recorded in the Devil Heart Sutra to solve his spiritual awareness problem, it was a trap that Yang Chen had already prepared for the Taishanmen. Now the demand of the Taishanmen for spirit-congealing pills was growing. Even if Li Liheng refined 5,000 pills last time, according to Li Liheng's consumption rate and according to Senior Lu Fengzi's estimation of Li Liheng's cultivation base, it was estimated that it would not be enough before his cultivation base was improved enough to communicate with Senior Lu Fengzi without help. There were 3 paths in front of him. The first was to continue to find Yang Chen and be blackmailed by Yang Chen. He believed that the Taishanmen would definitely not be willing. The second was to find another senior alchemist who could refine spirit-congealing pills or simply train one himself, but it would take hundreds of years or longer. The third was what Senior Lu Fengzi said, the Devil Heart Sutra. Yang Chen was very sure that Li Liheng would choose the third one. Being able to directly improve his spiritual awareness cultivation base, the temptation for Li Liheng was by no means great. This meant that his power would be further enhanced. Even if Li Liheng could hold back, he believed that the guy named Yang Lan would try his best to encourage Li Liheng. Chapter 1025. Unexpectedly, he inadvertently left Yang Lan's life, and there would be such benefits. Yang Chen also heard about what Yang Lan had done in recent years through other channels, which was very much in line with Yang Chen's appetite. With his help, he believed that Li Liheng would go further and further on the road to the destruction of Taishanmen. It was just a pity for Yang Lan. He thought that he was constantly making trouble for Yang Chen and taking revenge. Of course, Yang Chen would not easily break Yang Lan's fantasy. He also expected Yang Lan to be able to give advice to the honorable young sect master. Naturally, this was just a small trap. The real big trap was still behind, and it was a temptation that all the high-level Taishanmen could not refuse. However, it was not appropriate to throw it out now. He always had to choose an appropriate time. Now Yang Chen was in a good mood. Sure enough, it was the right way to vent some of his resentments. There was a balance between work and rest. He couldn't always stare at the stressful life. It was always necessary to relax appropriately. The 6th Earth Flying Sword was still the 6th Earth magic weapon. There was no point in being embarrassed, so he would use the 6th Earth magic weapon. Yang Chen made a decision. After checking the surrounding formation, he began to refine the 6th Earth magic weapon safely. The magic energy on the 9 secluded flying dust must be absorbed and purified first. After the refining was completed, the magic energy would be absorbed again. Otherwise, with a high concentration of magic energy, Yang Chen's refining process would not be smooth. The demonized vine in the sea of consciousness was still entangled by the spiritual awareness thread. The magic energy of the 9 secluded flying dust entered Yang Chen's sea of consciousness and joined the body of the strengthened demonized vine. It was undeniable that the magic energy contained in these 9 secluded flying dust, which had existed for an unknown period of time, far exceeded Yang Chen's imagination. Even in the middle of the absorption of the magic energy, Yang Chen had to stop the absorption process temporarily and spend a lot of time tempering himself with the magic energy again. This process repeated at least 5 times before the demon chi within the 9 hell flying dust was completely extracted. Then, he began the final preparations before the refinement, familiarizing himself with the materials. The 9 nether flying dust filled every corner of Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. The particles of the flying dust were extremely small. Even if they were magnified many times in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, they would still appear very tiny and indistinguishable. After carefully understanding the characteristics of the 9 nether flying dust, Yang Chen began to refine it. Before the formal refinement, Yang Chen first used the universe treasure nurturing technique to nourish the 9 flying dust. Then, he began to refine it. The process was not too difficult. His powerful consciousness was able to control all the 9U flying dust without any hindrance. After he left his own consciousness imprint, everything became simple. The most troublesome process was to refine the demonified vine's phantom into the magic weapon as a tool spirit. However, this was not a problem for Yang Chen. With the knowledge and experience of his previous life as a great principal golden immortal and the powerful consciousness of a grade 2 human immortal, adding a tool spirit to the magic weapon was not a troublesome thing. The only thing that made Yang Chen feel pity was that when refining the tool spirit, the success rate of weakening the demonified vine as a tool spirit was higher. Even with Yang Chen's current strength, he still could not make the demonified vine's phantom grow to its maximum size. He could only control it to a radius of 10 feet. Forcibly using his consciousness threads to invade the remaining consciousness of the demonified vine, he carefully retained the instinct of the demonified vine to swallow and condense demon qi. Then, he succeeded in putting the tool spirit into the magic weapon that had already been formed. This was the only one among Yang Chen's great yin-yang 5 elements magic weapon that had a tool spirit. It was completely black and did not even have a fixed shape. It was just a thick black mist that changed its shape from time to time under Yang Chen's control. When Yang Chen did not control it, it was a black smoke that looked natural. The refining process, for Yang Chen himself, was not perfect, because now Yang Chen's great yin-yang 5 elements secret art had not been fully collected. Although the 6th Earth true secret art had been obtained, he had not yet cultivated it. Therefore, the 6th Earth spirit power was not the original spirit power. Relatively speaking, the effect of refining the magic weapon was a little worse. However, Yang Chen did not intend to cultivate the 6th Earth true secret art at this time. These original spirit cultivation methods could be used at a critical moment for a breakthrough. It would be a waste to cultivate them at ordinary times. Moreover, the magic weapon could continue to be refined at that time. He believed that after the baptism of the 6th Earth true secret art, the quality would be even higher. Without any control, the black mist naturally surrounded Yang Chen, making Yang Chen look like a demon god. With a move of Yang Chen's mind, the black mist turned into a black robe, and suddenly it turned into a black armor. It was very natural. For the newly refined magic weapon, Yang Chen gave it a name, 9 Nether Flying Sword. Although it was not in the form of a flying sword, Yang Chen liked to call it that. Because the 9 Nether Flying Sword had just been refined, the spirit in it was deliberately weakened. In addition, the 9 nether flying dust was also purified before the refining, so the demonic qi contained was not sufficient, and it still looked very weak. But despite this, the 9 nether flying sword had shown the effect of condensing demonic qi that was not worse than the formation that Li Tianxue studied. The surrounding demonic qi that was condensed by the formation began to float towards the 9 nether flying sword, so that Yang Chen was surrounded by a thick demonic qi. With such a demonic qi, in the eyes of outsiders, it was definitely a cultivator who was contaminated by the demonic qi and then demonized, right? Maybe Li Tianxue had already become like this. Although Yang Chen did not kill Li Tianxue, apart from being demonized, there was only one result left, and that was to be killed by the demonic beast. There was no other possibility. Even if someone wanted to save him, a Deshang stage cultivator who was almost crazy would already burn incense if he didn't kill the person who saved him. What's more, this was the demon continent, if it was not a close friend, who would be so kind. Maybe there was a chance to meet and kill him first, and he could get some benefits from the corpse. This was the reality. With a wave of his hand, the 9 nether flying sword turned into a long black whip and lashed at a big tree next to him. The black demonic qi directly invaded into the trunk of the tree along with the big hole that was broken. In less than a moment, the whole tree withered and died. This was just a plant that could withstand the thin demonic qi on the periphery. How could it withstand such an attack? The effect made Yang Chen very satisfied, but now Yang Chen still needed to find a suitable opponent to test the effect of the attack, and whether it would really have the evil power to make people go crazy. All this needed to be verified, and it depended on whether he could find a suitable enemy. It had to be said that Yang Chen's luck was simply so good that it was against the heavens' will. Just as he was thinking about where an enemy could come out to try the power of the 9-nether flying sword, someone immediately appeared in the range of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. More coincidentally, Li Lihing's spiritual awareness imprint in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness shook slightly, and Yang Chen immediately understood that the other party must have a compass to track his whereabouts. Chapter 10:26. The distance was still far away, the other party was only at the peak Yuanying stage, and the scope of the spiritual awareness exploration was far less terrifying than that of Yang Chen, so he did not know that his figure had fallen under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. He just followed the direction guided by the compass. While moving forward, he killed the demonic beasts that constantly appeared around him. Yang Chen quietly put away the demonic chi formation a few miles away, and then walked directly in the direction of the man. As he walked, the 9-nether flying sword kept absorbing the demonic chi. With such a short journey, it would not take a long time, but if he could absorb a little, it would increase the power of the demonic chi slightly, and it may be able to make the other party fall into the state of cultivation deviation. In less than a few hours, the other party found the whereabouts of Yang Chen, and the trembling of the compass clearly told him that the target of this trip, Yang Chen, was not far away, and his spiritual awareness also found the figure of Yang Chen. However, this guy was a cautious guy. Even if he found Yang Chen's people, he still did not dare to be completely sure. He was just cautious and released an array flag with a stealth array, and wanted to get closer to confirm it carefully. "Are you looking for me?" Yang Chen directly exposed his whereabouts and asked without waiting for him to get close. "Alchemy Grandmaster Yang?" The other party had never seen Yang Chen, but had only heard the description. Seeing Yang Chen speak, he no longer concealed it, put away the array flag, and asked in a very calm tone. "Yes." Yang Chen admitted directly, and then asked, "How do I address this friend?" "There is no need to be so troublesome. Take out what Elder Hu Qianyi wants, and I will let you live." The other party was a master of the peak Yuanying stage. Against Yang Chen, who was in the early Yuanying stage, he was naturally full of confidence. His words were also extremely domineering and condescending. "Otherwise, there will be one more demonic cultivator in this world." Yang Chen was surrounded by a black mist that could not be hidden from the eyes of the other party, and Yang Chen did not intend to hide it. At the very least, in the eyes of the other party, Yang Chen was currently being invaded by demonic chi and was unable to take care of himself. He thought that by saying this, he had already given Yang Chen enough face, and in this situation, Yang Chen had no choice but to refuse. "What exactly does Elder Hu want?" Yang Chen asked with a smile. "I don't know." The peak of the Yuanying stage smiled and replied. Without giving Yang Chen a chance to speak again, he directly ordered, "So, hand over everything you have and I will spare your life." Yang Chen could still smile. At least in the eyes of the other party, Yang Chen should be crying. A 5th-grade alchemy grandmaster was not a powerful figure in this demon continent. Demonized demon beasts didn't care if you were an alchemy master, a grandmaster or not. Demonized demon beasts would still demonize. Wasn't Yang Chen in such a crisis now? The master couldn't help but be happy. With Yang Chen's appearance, it could be said that he could need him however he wanted. It was his great luck that Yang Chen's good things were all taken advantage of by him. This time, not only could he find what the sect needed and make a great contribution, but he could also recover the things that Yang Chen extorted from the sect. Those things that Yang Chen extorted from the Taishaman were a huge fortune in itself. Whether it was returned to the sect or not, it meant huge benefits for the peak Yuanying stage master. In fact, he didn't want to keep Yang Chen's life at all. The reason why he said so much was that he was waiting for Yang Chen to be deeply invaded by the demonic qi, so it would be easier to deal with him. As for failure, could such a ridiculous thing happen? If you want something, you'd better come and get it yourself. Yang Chen stood in the same place, and did not make any extra movements. He just provoked with a faint smile. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll help you. The master grinned, and did not hesitate to summon the flying sword and slashed at Yang Chen from a distance. In any case, this was the demon continent. There was nothing wrong with being careful. The master still did a good job. The black gas on Yang Chen's body suddenly skyrocketed and greeted the other party's flying sword. Seeing this situation, the other party was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect such a situation, but he was only stunned for a moment. He still controlled the flying sword to slash at Yang Chen. As soon as the flying sword touched the black mist, it was like a hot sword inserted into a cold pool, making a hissing sound, which made people feel creepy. Even the slightest person understood that this black gas was not a good method. The Yuanying stage master hurriedly recalled the flying sword and checked it carefully. When he found that there was no major problem, he was relieved. This kind of strange method, it should be the method of the demon sex, right? I didn't expect the 5th grade alchemist Master Yang Chen, Master Yang, to be a demon, so this old man has to get rid of the demon to defend the Tao. After all, he was from the Tao sections. Even in this situation, the other party did not forget to find a righteous title and put a demon hat on Yang Chen. He said it with a righteous look, and he was a master who got rid of the demon to defend the Tao. So much nonsense. Yang Chen snorted, and directly turned the black mist into a huge whip, and lashed at the other party. How could a master of the peak Yuanying stage be hit by this kind of attack? The other party's figure flashed, and he had already dodged, and then the flying sword immediately counterattacked. The black mist suddenly rose, and it directly covered the space of tens of feet, and the peak Yuanying stage master was directly enveloped in it. Seeing this situation, the other party was shocked, and hurriedly sacrificed a few protective magic weapons to protect his body, and he was about to leave the shroud of the black mist. How could Yang Chen let him escape? The 9-nether flying sword could change shape, and it instantly turned into countless spikes, and stabbed the opponent who was wrapped in the center. What protective magic weapon, what flying sword, cut on the black mist, it was useless. Who has seen a sword that can cut the mist? The black mist directly invaded his skin. As soon as he touched the black mist, the other party felt that his mind was in a trance, and then he had distracting thoughts. He immediately noticed that it was not good, and he quickly launched a clear mind cultivation method, and quickly suppressed these distracting thoughts. It must be said that the Tao sex cultivators were still determined after all, and they were infected by the demonic qi. Although there were some signs of heart demons, they quickly calmed down. It really is the method of the demon sex. Evil creature, you can't be left alive. Perceiving the abnormality in the black mist, the opponent was even more furious, and he almost took out his trump card, and regardless of the black mist, he only attacked Yang Chen. What a pity! Yang Chen on the opposite side could only make such a sigh. This 9-nether flying sword, after all, was refined not long ago, and the demonic qi was insufficient. Otherwise, it would have been enough to trigger this guy's heart demon, and he would have directly become the same as Li Tianxue. It was really a pity. Chapter 1027. However, despite the lack of power, the other party obviously paused and then immediately launched the clear mind cultivation method. Yang Chen still saw it in his eyes and was happy in his heart. This fully showed that the 9-nether flying sword, as Yang Chen expected, had the effect of a mental attack. It was enough to confirm this, and it didn't really need to have a strong effect. If it had such a terrifying power when it had just been refined and had not absorbed much demonic energy, Yang Chen was not sure if he could suppress his own flying sword. It was good now. While Yang Chen was satisfied, it also meant that the other party no longer had the value of existence. The other party kept talking about Elder Hu. Obviously, he was either the people of Taishanmen or Hu Qianni. It would not be a pity to kill him. Although the nine-nether flying sword was in the form of mist, it did not mean that it only had the power of a mental attack. Since Yang Chen dared to call it a flying sword, it still had the attack power of a flying sword. Previously, it was just to verify the mental attack. Now that the other party thought that the black mist was nothing more than this, the poor guy was simply courting his own death. Chi-chi, the unusually clear sound of a sharp blade cutting through the flesh sounded, followed by half a scream that was not completely shouted out, and then there was no other sound. The misty nine-nether flying sword returned to its original robe appearance, and Yang Chen was very satisfied with this. In this demon continent, the last thing that was lacking was demonic energy. As long as this flying sword was surrounded by demonic energy, it could continue to accumulate demonic energy. The dead guy's Qinkuan bag was already in Yang Chen's hands. After a few glances, he knew the origin of the other party. Sure enough, it was a guy from Taishanmen. Looking at the compass he deliberately brought, he must have come here to kill Yang Chen. The Taishanmen probably couldn't stand it anymore. From time to time, there would be a demonized monster jumping out, and Yang Chen was not bothered by the two masters, and directly killed them with the nine-nether flying sword. Soon Yang Chen discovered that after the nine-nether flying sword killed the demonized monster, it could directly absorb the condensed demonic energy in the demonic body, which was much more efficient than directly exposing it to the demonic energy. After discovering this, Yang Chen was happy for a while. As long as the demonized monster was killed enough and strong enough, the power of the nine-nether flying sword would increase rapidly. Refining the flying sword had taken several months. After calculating the time, Yang Chen estimated that when he arrived at the appointed gathering place, it would be almost the day of the reunion with the women. He simply found the right direction and walked all the way. When the demonic energy was absorbed to a certain extent, Yang Chen discovered another feature of the nine-nether flying sword. That was, as long as he came into contact with the nine-nether flying sword, all kinds of messy thoughts would constantly emerge in his mind. Even if Yang Chen's current spiritual awareness was so strong, he could not avoid it. With the inexplicable accumulation of more and more, this kind of messy thoughts became more and more complex. Yang Chen needed to constantly fight against this kind of distracting thoughts that he didn't know where they came from. He was almost always tempering his own state of mind. For others, this was definitely a demonic thing that would affect their cultivation, but for Yang Chen, it was simply a magic weapon for tempering his mind. Even Yang Chen did not have to deliberately absorb the demonic energy of the devilish bead, and he could easily achieve the purpose of tempering his state of mind. In this case, if Yang Chen could still get used to it and cope with it, he believed that there was nothing in the mortal world that could bother Yang Chen. He had almost experienced all kinds of positive and negative emotions that could be imagined. No matter how strong the emotional fluctuations were, they could not make Yang Chen confused. Even if he was already possessed by the devil, it was estimated that he could forcibly suppress it. This nine-nether flying sword with the attribute of accumulating earth was simply the most suitable magic weapon to be used on the demon continent. Of course, only people like Yang Chen could easily control it. As long as others dared to touch it, it would cause unpredictable consequences. Strictly speaking, among the flying sword in Yang Chen's body, not to mention others, the second wood blood phantom vine flying sword and the sixth earth nine-nether flying sword were almost two demonic swords. One grew by sucking blood, and the other grew by absorbing demonic energy. They were all demonic things that couldn't be more evil in the eyes of a gentleman. With these two flying swords, it was a little difficult for Yang Chen to argue that he was a demon. In view of this, Yang Chen could only use the two flying swords carefully. Otherwise, it would not be worth the loss to be eliminated before his great cause was achieved. When Yang Chen arrived at the gathering place, it was already almost a few months later. There were only more than 2 months and less than 3 months before he reunited with the 4 women. Along the way, Yang Chen killed a lot of demonic beasts, but without a few Deshang stage masters to drive those demonic beasts to his side, the number of killings dropped a lot, but he had already experienced a tragic killing before, and the killing efficiency of his sword techniques was extremely improved. This time, Yang Chen's luck was not very good. In 2 years, he didn't know how many demonic beasts he had killed, but he didn't even get a devilish bead, which made Yang Chen very unhappy. Of course, it was just a little unhappy. Yang Chen had not yet reached the point where he had to get the devilish bead. The appointed gathering place was tens of thousands of miles deeper than the previous one, and it was slightly smaller. After all, there were always fewer and fewer masters. As soon as he entered the gathering place, Yang Chen saw an acquaintance, Li Cheng, who came to greet him when he first entered the demon continent. "Brother Yang Chen, what a coincidence!" Li Cheng also saw Yang Chen and greeted Yang Chen with a smile. "It's really a coincidence we meet again." Yang Chen also smiled and greeted him. He still had a feeling of not being able to see through Li Cheng in his heart, but there was no particularly dangerous concept. He didn't know why. As soon as the two greeted each other, Yang Chen suddenly found that Li Liheng's spiritual awareness imprint in his sea of consciousness trembled a few times, as if several people were using the compass to track him at the same time. Yang Chen's face changed, and before he could say anything, he saw that around the gathering place, a few figures slowly came towards this side, vaguely surrounding Yang Chen from several directions. Among the several people, the weakest one was also in the late Yuanying stage, and the strongest one was in the peak Deshang stage. Yang Chen's eyes narrowed and he stared closely at the old man who looked the most stooped. The peak Deshang stage, there was also an oppressive aura on his body. Yang Chen directly guessed the identity of the old man. He was definitely a great elder of Taishanmen. "Kid, give me your life." The great elder simply ignored the rules of the gathering place and said to Yang Chen, "Stop." Just when Yang Chen was planning to fight with the other party, Li Cheng, who was next to Yang Chen, shouted at the great elder who was closing in. "The gathering place is strictly forbidden to use force." Chapter 10:28. Li Cheng's words seemed to have aroused all the murderous intent. At the same time as his voice fell, the boundless coercion enveloped everyone in the gathering point. Under this powerful coercion, even the masters of the Deshang stage felt a chill in their hearts. The source of the coercion came from the stooped old man. While countless people were surprised, they were also greatly shocked. Such a master, how high did his cultivation have to be to make these people, who were usually pretentious, feel fear? There were a few who did not seem to be affected. All of them appeared with the old man, distributed in all directions, firmly guarding in the middle. Seeing this situation, the dozens of Deshang stage masters around all took a cold breath for a while. To be able to firmly suppress everyone in this kind of situation, and to be able to accurately control not to hurt his own people, what kind of cultivation base was this? Rules. The stooped old man seemed to have suddenly become a muscular man in an instant. His monstrous momentum rushed straight to the sky, and his cold words were like a high and mighty ruler, inviolable. "What rules? Where I am the rule." Everyone at the gathering point heard this unbelievably arrogant statement. There was a burst of anger on everyone's face, but the strange thing was that no one stood up except Li Cheng. According to the rules of the previous gathering points, if someone dared to break the rules so blatantly, he would absolutely not escape the fate of being besieged by everyone. Even if his cultivation base was higher, it was impossible to be the opponent of everyone. Living in the demon continent for so long, everyone has always felt that it was a natural rule that they could not fight at the gathering point, and no one has ever thought of violating it. But today, a guy stood arrogantly in front of everyone and said loudly that he was the rule. These guys who had been on the killing field for a long time seemed to have chosen to be silent. Everyone who came here to gain experience, even if they had killed many people in the demon continent, they had also killed from the bottom to the top. The number of demonized beasts killed by their hands could be said to be innumerable. The number of battles exceeded the total number of battles that many people could face in a lifetime. It was reasonable to say that there should be no fear. But this unreasonable thing happened. Whether it was the ancestors of the Yuanying stage or the masters of the Deshang stage, in the face of the terrifying pressure of the old man, there was no thought of resistance in their hearts. In addition to fear, the only thing left was that it was natural. This was definitely a peerless master, and it was a super master who was so high that all the masters of the Deshang stage who were present would not dare to fight. Why would such an expert appear here? The difference in cultivation level was simply too great. The Great Elder's strength was infinitely close to that of a human immortal who had transcended tribulation. As long as a cultivator had not transcended tribulation, he or she would be firmly suppressed by such a huge difference in cultivation level or even a world. Compared with the fear and timidity of all the masters in the gathering point, those masters who came to the demon continent with the Great Elder were really proud and proud. Before coming to the demon continent, everyone felt that this was a terrifying place, but when they really came here, they found that it was just some simple demonized beast. Even without waiting for them to make a move, the Great Elder released a little bit of his aura from a distance, and there were no more demonic beasts who dared to come close. This made them suddenly feel that the demon continent was nothing great. Others regarded it as a dangerous place, but they regarded it as a smooth road. Moreover, so many people came to hunt down a junior in the early Yuanying stage with great fanfare, it was really a bit overkill. However, thinking about Yang Chen's previous record, or it couldn't be said to be a record, it could only be said that the results of the previous Taishaman sent people out, it seemed that Yang Chen also had a master guarding him. 6 masters of the Yuanying stage fell at the same time, and even Elder Hu Qianni was inexplicably plotted against. It was a safe plan to send the Great Elder. From the moment Yang Chen appeared at the gathering point, he was doomed to be a dead man. Originally, some people planned to follow the compass all the way, but the Great Elder did not fully agree. He just let a few of them split into several directions to start tracking, but he waited in this gathering point with a group of masters. The Elder seemed to be sure that Yang Chen would come here. The waiting time was not very long. It had only been more than a year since they arrived at the demon continent, and most of them were on the road. After coming to this gathering point, at the beginning, everyone also followed the rules, and did not make any excessive behavior, until the appearance of Yang Chen. In this ridiculous place, the rules were set that no fighting was allowed. Didn't they know that the rules were set by the people with big fists? Even if there were masters in charge, what about it? Weren't they scared by the Great Elder and didn't dare to move? It was ridiculous to break the rules and gang up on him. Their group blatantly broke the rules, but so far, no one has come out to maintain the rules. No, there was a little guy who jumped out, and he was actually the one with the worst cultivation base in this gathering point. It may be that he had just come to the demon continent not long ago, there was no sign of fighting on his body, and his temperament was not strong enough. The newcomer didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Did he think that someone would respond if he stood up? Several masters of Taishaman thought in their hearts, and they sneered on their faces, watching Li Qing jump out like a joke, and no one move. They only needed to ensure that Yang Chen couldn't escape, and the rest would naturally be solved by the Great Elder. As for the Great Elder, he would not be interested in a little guy who jumped out of his head. At his point, what fame and fortune, what power and profit, what thoughts of fighting for power and profit were faint. His heart was like still water, and he would never have any hot-blooded impulse. The little guy was good, he knew how to maintain the rules, but that was all. The Great Elder didn't even look at Li Qing, just took a firm and solid step, and walked towards Yang Chen step by step. Yang Chen was his real goal. After solving Yang Chen and finishing the things for the sect, he could safely cross the tribulation and ascend. "I don't care what rules you have here, I only follow my own rules." The voice of the great elder was like a ruler, calm and majestic, and everyone who heard it was shocked. "I only want one person's life, the others, as long as you stay honestly, otherwise, go die." In 2 consecutive sentences, the great elder had clearly expressed his attitude and his purpose. His goal was Yang Chun alone. Chapter 10:29. If you break the rules, everyone has the right to punish you. Just as Yang Chen was about to make a move, Li Cheng's voice sounded again. This time, not only the masters of Taishanmen, but even the other masters of the demon continent who were deterred by the great elder cast a surprised look. Li Cheng spoke for the first time, and then the old guy directly released a monstrous pressure, which suppressed everyone, and no one dared to say half a word. Why did he still dare to jump out and talk nonsense now? Was he tired of living? "Stubborn fool, you two can die together." The great elder's voice, which was almost without joy or sorrow, sounded again, and a sword light flew up from his body and flew high into the sky. At the same time, there was another light flying up, but it flew out from Li Cheng's body. It was also a sword light, but compared with the dazzling sword light of the great elder, Li Cheng's sword light was very dim, and it could even be said that there was almost no light, it was just an almost invisible gray shadow. Whoosh! The great elder's sword light flew directly towards Yang Chen, and Li Cheng's sword light also slashed towards the great elder at the same time. Except for Yang Chen and Li Cheng, everyone present had determined a result in their hearts. Yang Chen's head was cut off, and Li Cheng's flying sword was blocked, and then the next sword light flew back and cut off Li Cheng's head. A master at the level of the great elder was already too lazy to deal with several opponents at the same time, especially 2 juniors. He would definitely come one by one, and he would not worry that the other party could resist successfully. He would behead them in order, leaving no hope for the opponent. This was a real master. Everyone was watching the moment when Yang Chen's head flew up, but they only saw Yang Chen stretch out his hand and grab the sword light. Catching the flying sword with his bare hands? This young man couldn't be a fool, right? Not to mention facing a master of this level, even if it was a young man in the early nascent soul stage who was in the same realm as him, he would suffer a big loss against the flying sword with his bare hand. Even if there was a good body refining technique, it could not withstand the confrontation between the tempered body and the tempered magic weapon. It was clear at a glance who was strong and who was weak. So, in everyone's speculation, before the situation of Yang Chen's head flying up, there was another scene of the palm being cut off, which should be consistent. The peerless master just said that he only wanted the lives of Yang Chen and Li Cheng, and as long as the others did not move, it would be fine. The group of people who had been suppressed by the Grand Elder to the point of not daring to breathe were actually relieved. As long as it had nothing to do with them, it couldn't be any better. No one cared about the rule of not fighting at the assembly point. Just as the Great Elder had said, the one with the biggest fist was the rule. At this moment, the Great Elder's fist was the biggest, so his words were the rule. There were hundreds of people up and down in this gathering point. There were nearly 1,000 people. To be. From this point of view, all the guys who came to the demon continent to gain experience, except for Li Cheng, should feel ashamed. It's a pity that shame is not as important as life and death, and no one will jump out to be the person who sacrificed his life for righteousness. As soon as everyone's worries were put down, another thought emerged. It was definitely a precious experience to be able to witness a master at the level of the Great Elder with their own eyes. Everyone couldn't help but look forward to it, looking forward to the result they guessed. The flying sword had already arrived in front of Yang Chen, and Yang Chen's hand was very fast, and he grabbed it down. Just when everyone was waiting for the scene of the palm being broken and blood spurting out, the sword light suddenly stopped. brush, the situation of the sword light changing from extreme movement to extreme stillness made people's eyes uncomfortable for a while, but no matter how uncomfortable it was, it couldn't compare to the shock in their hearts. Yang Chen just reached out casually and grabbed the sword light, and then the flying sword of the peerless master was caught by Yang Chen's big hand. Not to mention cutting off the palm, it was estimated that it didn't even cut off a hair on Yang Chen's hand. How was this possible? A master who was more powerful than all the masters of the Deshang stage combined on the scene could not even do anything to the fingers of a junior in the early Yuanying stage? What kind of joke was this? Could it be that this old man and this young man teased everyone together to play a play? Not only those people from the demon continent, but even the people from Taishanmen were all stunned. What was going on? How was this possible? How could the great elder let Yang Chen catch his flying sword? Among the people at the scene, the most surprised was not the others, but the great elder. From the beginning to the present, he has been firmly grasping the initiative, controlling all the atmosphere here. He wanted the wind to blow, he wanted the rain to rain. He was waiting to kill Yang Chen with a sword, but suddenly there was a change in the situation. With a move of his mind, his life source flying sword, which was connected to his mind, was ready to change the angle to kill Yang Chen. However, this was just a thought. The flying sword in Yang Chen's hand just shook slightly. The great elder was shocked. The young man in the early Yuanying stage in front of him was actually a master who hid so deeply. Grabbing the life source flying sword of a master of his level with his bare hands, even if the great elder was stronger than those who had just crossed the tribulation and ascended, he did not dare. Even someone as strong as the grand elder, who had surpassed those who had just ascended, would not dare to grab the natal flying sword of an expert of his level with his bare hands. Yang Chen did not hesitate to reach out and grab it. Just as he was feeling surprised, a black light flashed in front of him. Only then did the great elder remember that there was another junior who was planning to attack him with a flying sword. Just as he was just immersed in the shock of being caught by Yang Chen with his bare hands, he actually forgot this. If the tiger doesn't show its power, do you really think I am a sick cat? Even two juniors in the early Yuanying stage dare to ride on this old man's neck and shit? The great elder, who was just shocked from the beginning to the end, was no longer in that state of no joy and no sorrow. He was furious. This trivial flying sword, you want to deal with the great elder of Taishanmen? This young man didn't put the master in his eyes too much, right? The great elder was furious, but he stood still in the same place. Yang Chen dared to catch the flying sword with his bare hands. How could he, a peerless master, not dare to do so? He just wanted to let others see that this old man was standing here. No matter how you cut me with your flying sword, you can't do anything to this old man. Thus, another shocking scene occurred once again. Such a powerful peerless master, the great elder of Taishanmen, who only used his breath to make the thousands of masters present not dare to breathe, stood straight in the same place and let Li Cheng, the younger generation's flying sword, cut his neck. Then, a white-haired head, like a silk ball being thrown up, rushed into the sky with a fountain of blood. After turning a few times in the air, it fell in a place not far away, rolled a few times, and no longer moved. The headless corpse was still standing in the same place, and on the flat neck, there was a burst of hissing sound, and blood spurted wildly, dyeing the surrounding blood red. Chapter 1030. There were only two swords in total, the sword that the great elder used to kill Yang Chen, plus the sword that Li Qing used to kill the great elder. Both swords looked very ordinary, without the slightest special place, but the results were very different. The sword that was slashed at Yang Chen was caught by Yang Chen empty-handed, and now the flying sword was still in Yang Chen's hands. As for the sword that slashed at the Supreme Elder, it was an effective strike, cleanly decapitating the Supreme Elder. The fact was so incredible that it was not until the great elder's head fell to the ground and his body fell to the ground that the group of people reacted. How is this possible? The most incredible thing was the masters of the Taishaman, the power of the Great Elder. They followed him from the sect to the demon continent for more than 10 years, and they understood it very well. Not to mention a little early Yuanying stage, even if there were 10 or 100 of them, they should not be able to do anything to the Great Elder. But the situation that everyone saw was not like this at all. Several masters of the Taishaman even thought that the Great Elder was joking with everyone and deliberately made an illusion. It's just that this illusion was too real, right? It was so real that everyone felt it was real. That was the Great Elder who had surpassed the strength of a master, who had transcended the tribulation and ascended. Impossible. On the other side, the people who were shocked were the guys from the demon continent. A peerless master who only exuded his aura scared them so much that they didn't dare to move, was so easily beheaded by a sword without any resistance? What was wrong with this world? Was the early Yuanying stage the most powerful realm in the mortal world? Could it be that this master was just a fancy, but his aura was amazing, but he didn't have any skills? This was the most likely situation, otherwise, such a powerful master. The flying sword was grabbed by a young man in the early Yuanying stage. It was too fake. Today, someone broke the rules by killing Master Yang. If you don't do anything, when someone kills you and breaks the rules one day, who will save you? Li Cheng killed the incomparably overbearing Supreme Elder with a single sword strike, but he did not continue to attack the Taishaman. Instead, he shouted loudly. Li Cheng's shout immediately woke up the surrounding people, who were stunned. Today, they could be considered to have lost all their faith. Not to mention being bullied and slapped in the face, so many of them didn't even dare to make a sound. Furthermore, it was the 2 nascent soul realm cultivators with the lowest cultivation who had been upholding the rules. How could they endure this? Countless pairs of eyes filled with shame and anger stared directly at the Taishaman experts who came out with the Supreme Elder. There were dozens of masters of the Deshang stage here, plus hundreds of masters who were at least in the early Yuanying stage, who had been in the demon continent for at least 10 years. The Taishaman sent this time, except for a Grand Supreme Elder, the others were only at the late and peak nascent soul stage. Just a dozen or so Yuanying stage masters, facing the hateful eyes of hundreds of masters. The kind of high-spirited mood just now no longer existed. At this moment, their mood was absolutely exactly the same as when the people at the gathering point were suppressed by the Supreme Elder at the beginning, and they didn't dare to breathe. It was a pity that these guys who had killed countless people, in addition to being ashamed and angry, when they strongly wanted to vent, they didn't have the magnanimity of the Supreme Elder to let them go as long as they didn't get in the way. Someone took the lead and just took a step, and suddenly everyone rushed to the nearest Taishaman disciple. More than a dozen Taishaman Yuanying stage masters were buried by hundreds of angry demon continent killers in the blink of an eye, and there was no trace of them. In the chaos, only 2 places were completely undisturbed. One was the place where Yang Chen stood, and the other was the place where Li Cheng stood. The distance between the 2 was almost 2 feet, but within a radius of 10 feet, there was no other living person, only a headless corpse lying a few feet away from them. One caught the flying sword of a super master empty-handed, and the other beheaded a super master with a sword. The hundreds of people present were not fools. Acting? Was there such a person who used his head to act? What's more, when the peerless master just appeared, there were more than a dozen masters of the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage. It was absolutely true. Since the peerless master was real, then how terrifying was the person who beheaded this level of master with a sword? How terrifying was the person who caught the flying sword of such a master empty-handed? Wandering in the demon continent, in addition to having the heroic spirit of not being afraid of death, one must also have enough eyesight to be able to judge the strength of the opponent, run when it was time to run, and pretend to be a grandson when it was time to pretend to be a grandson. Before, in front of the Supreme Elder, everyone pretended to be a grandson very well, and obviously their eyesight was also very good. Such 2 super powerful killers, If anyone dared to provoke them at will, it was really courting death. Let's vent our anger on those guys who came out with the peerless master. The flying sword is yours, and the Qianquan bag is mine, how about it? Li Cheng just shouted, and didn't care about the performance of these people around him at all, and discussed with Yang Chen. The two were not far away, and they could hear each other clearly. The flying sword naturally referred to the flying sword of the Supreme Elder, which was now in the hand of Yang Chen. Because the master died, it had stopped struggling and was obediently put away by Yang Chen. The Qianquan bag was the Qianquan bag on the body of the Supreme Elder. It was estimated that the old guy had accumulated all his life. Okay. Yang Chen had long known that Li Cheng was a bit mysterious, but he still didn't expect him to be so terrifying. He beheaded the Supreme Elder of the Taishanmen with one sword. Although the Supreme Elder was careless in this, Li Cheng's own strength should not be underestimated. If Yang Chen wanted to take action, he could also desperately kill this Supreme Elder, but he was afraid that he would have to use a lot of capital, and even destroy a lot of things, exposing the trump card that he would plot against the Taishanmen countless days later. Maybe he would also be injured, and it would not be as easy as Li Cheng to kill the opponent with a wave of his hand. In this case, Li Cheng's strength was not overestimated by Yang Chen, but underestimated. Fortunately, it was not too late to know now, but he didn't know which sect this mysterious master came from. The natal flying sword of the Supreme Elder of the Taishanmen was definitely a good thing. This kind of thing that would accompany the Supreme Elder to ascend to the immortal world of the spiritual world and fight for a lifetime must have been made by him at all costs. In terms of value, it would not be lower than the things in the Qianquan bag. Seeing that Li Cheng was straightforward and had no hostility from the beginning, Yang Chen also wanted to get to know him more. After Li Cheng's flying sword hooked the Supreme Elder's Qianquan bag and put it away, he smiled and invited, "Brother Li, I still have some good wine here. Do you want to drink a few cups with me? I can't ask for more." Li Cheng was also a straightforward person. He laughed and agreed directly. Chapter 1031. When the two walked into a room in the gathering point together, the guys at the gathering point who were paying attention to the movements of the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that these two fiends were not particularly angry, but these guys from the demon continent all felt embarrassed. They enjoyed the safety of the gathering point for hundreds of years, but when things came to an end, they didn't know how to stand up and maintain the rules of the gathering point. If this goes on for a long time, it would be impossible for them to find a place where they could rest at ease on the demon continent. It was this feeling of shame and indignation that made these guys particularly merciless when facing the remaining Taishanmen disciples. Just a wave of impact, the dozen or so Taishanmen Yuanying stage masters died. All the Taishanmen people were killed, but no one dared to put away the Qianquan bags left by these Taishanmen disciples at will. In the end, two Deshang stage masters took the initiative to collect these Qianquan bags, and then respectfully sent them to the outside of the room where Yang Chen and Li Cheng went in to drink. They killed the people, but they had no face to claim credit. The two young people seemed to be drinking, but no one dared to go in with a straight face. The performance of the two juniors was more powerful than the old guys who had been practicing on the demon continent for many years. In front of the two young people, the people in this gathering point could not lift their heads. The two people in the room ignored what happened outside and didn't say much about what had just happened. The two were just chatting and drinking. The wine was the Jade Dragon wine prepared by Yang Chen. Because Sun Qingxue also liked to drink a little, Yang Chen brewed a lot of auxiliary wine to blend with the distiller's yeast. Every year, it was brewed with the spirit spring water from all over the place. After so many years, it has saved a lot of money. In particular, some of the auxiliary wines had been aged for 100 or 200 years. The auxiliary wine alone was also a good wine, and it was blended with the distiller's yeast that had been preserved in the gourd for tens of thousands of years. As soon as it was taken out, the fragrance of the wine was overwhelming, and people couldn't help but be intoxicated. Good wine. Li Cheng was obviously a wine lover, and he knew wine very well. Just by smelling it, he seemed to be able to determine the origin of some wine. This is brewed by Wuliang. It's at least 170 years old. After smelling it, Li Cheng took a small sip and closed his eyes to savor it for a while before continuing. With the addition of aged distiller's yeast, there's something old in the new, and something new in the old. Sure enough, there's something different about it. After drinking another mouthful, he said again, "This water should be a spirit spring from the southern heaven region. It has been infused with a bit of gung metal origin. Metal gives birth to water. Good wine. Good wine." Just these two comments alone made Yang Chen have a whole new level of respect for him. Regardless of whether it was the brewing year, the ingredients, or the source of the water, everything was on point. This was definitely a unique skill. It would be impossible if one did not have a certain level of familiarity with the geography of the world. This auxiliary wine was personally brewed by me, but the distiller's yeast was obtained from somewhere else. It's rare that Brother Li likes it, so please drink more. Yang Chen was naturally happy that someone praised the wine he brewed. Yang Chen's auxiliary wine was also taken out one by one for Li Cheng to taste. The wine blended with different auxiliary wines had different tastes. Any one of them was the best wine in the world. Both of them were forthright people. They didn't care whether there were dishes to go with the wine or not. They just drank one cup after another while talking about some interesting things in the world. When drinking with bosom friends, 1,000 cups was not enough. If my wife was here, she would be able to prepare a table of good side dishes. While drinking, Yang Chen didn't forget to praise his wife. Specifically for the sake of this little brother's desire for good food, you have studied in the mortal world for a whole 10 years. In a few months, if Brother Li is still here, you will definitely be able to have a good meal. There's such a thing? Hearing Yang Chen praise his wife, Li Cheng's eyes suddenly lit up. His face was full of expectation. At a glance one could tell that he was a foodie. If that's the case, this little brother will definitely wait for a few months. In terms of cultivation, both of them must have secrets that were not known to others, and even in terms of enjoyment, they seemed to be unwilling to lag behind others. They all understood the balance between work and rest, and understood the appropriate indulgence of their emotional instincts, so they could naturally talk together. As they chatted, they naturally talked about this demon continent. Everyone was training in this demon continent, so naturally they had a lot of common topics. Yang Chen wasn't very clear about the existence of these gathering points and the origin of the formation that blocked the entire demon continent, so he naturally had to ask Li Cheng for advice. However, Li Cheng claimed that he had just arrived. In fact, the two should have entered the demon continent at the same time, but Li Cheng came dozens of days earlier when they were on the periphery, so they didn't know much. But Li Cheng didn't come here entirely to gain experience. He also went to a lot of places, saw a lot of things, and knew a little more than Yang Chen. It's just that the extra ones were just where the demonic energy was particularly abnormal. For Yang Chen, it was just a reference, and it didn't have much use. However, Li Cheng was very interested in Yang Chen's current robe. With his eyesight, he naturally saw that this was a magic weapon, but wasn't this Yang Chen too bold to refine a magic weapon that absorbs demonic energy and wear it on his body? Brother Yang still has to be careful of this demonic energy. Li Cheng said a little earnestly, "This demonic energy has been studied by this little brother for many days. Although it can't hurt people, if the concentration is high, the average cultivator will be entangled for life and unable to get rid of it, because this demonic energy is fatal, and it is countless. Brother Yang should be safe." It was not too difficult to find the demonic energy of the nine nether flying sword at a glance. People in this demon continent dealt with demonic energy almost every day, and anyone could find it. But as Li Cheng said, if the concentration was high, it would be entangled for life, which was not so simple. Yang Chen was now simply using the demonic energy as an inducement to temper his state of mind, and the concentration of the demonic energy was far from the point of entanglement for life. But Li Cheng had already come to this conclusion, and it was conceivable how deep Li Cheng's research was. This little brother will pay attention. Yang Chen hurriedly thanked him. No matter what the other party said, it was a good intention. Don't be too nervous for the time being. This tool spirit is a bit interesting. It is an excellent thing to temper the state of mind. Li Cheng had been staring at Yang Chen's robe, and seemed to see what he was thanking him for, and then said, "If your spiritual awareness is strong enough and your mind is firm enough, you don't have to worry. It's just that the ordinary cultivator's spiritual awareness is not so high, and naturally the demonic energy will take advantage of it. As long as you pay attention to this at all times, you will be fine." This was good news. At least Yang Chen could use it at ease. If the 9-nether flying sword had to be sealed after it was refined, Yang Chen would also feel a pity. Since Li Cheng said so, he believed that Yang Chen would be able to control it easily. Chapter 1032. Strictly speaking, Li Cheng and Yang Chen were just acquaintances. They spoke a few words when they first entered the demon continent. This was the second time. And although the two were facing the same enemy this time, the purpose of the attack was different. Yang Chen was resisting the other party's attempt to kill him, while Li Cheng was trying to maintain the rules of the gathering point of the demon continent. Therefore, although the two had drunk a lot of wine and had a very congenial exchange, they were at best two drinking buddies, not close friends. After drinking, Li Cheng did not stay with Yang Chen all the time, but found a room to cultivate by himself. There were many rooms in this gathering point, which was a safe place for people to cultivate. It was very easy to find a room. Li Cheng didn't even look at the Qiankuan bag placed at the door of the room where the two were drinking. He directly kicked half of it to Yang Chen according to the quantity, and took the other half away without hesitation. Li Cheng cultivated by himself, but Yang Chen was not so focused, but first came out to see if he could buy some devilish bead in the near future. While increasing some wealth, he could also absorb some high concentration of demonic energy. Since Li Cheng said that Yang Chen didn't have to worry, Yang Chen didn't know why, but he believed Li Cheng's words very much. Although the two didn't have much contact, there was a kind of silent tacit understanding and trust. Even if Yang Chen was still a little afraid of Li Cheng, he had no doubt about this. To be honest, if Li Cheng really wanted to harm Yang Chen really had no certainty of winning in a face-to-face battle. He even had a hunch in his heart that even if he released his own blood river, it would not have any effect. So he would not doubt that Li Cheng would have any tricks on this small problem that he didn't know when it would happen. Walking on the street, those people looked at Yang Chen with some evasive eyes. The people in their gathering point were really embarrassed this time. A group of masters didn't even have the courage to make a move. It was so shameful that they didn't have the face to see others. "Shopkeeper, do you have any devilish bead, unpurified devilish bead, big and small?" The atmosphere was awkward. Yang Chen quickly entered a store and directly stated his requirements. "Anything you buy, all the stores here are 20% off." The shopkeeper was also one of the people who didn't dare to make a move yesterday. When he saw Yang Chen, he blushed slightly and then hurriedly said. After saying this, the shopkeeper took out all the devilish beads in his store and let Chen choose. Other people definitely did not have this kind of treatment. They all asked what grade of demonic baleful bead they wanted to buy. Only then would the shopkeeper take out one bead, at most 2 beads for customers to choose from. Chen was not polite. He directly chose the biggest 10 and then asked the shopkeeper to calculate. They were all unpurified demonic beads. The shopkeeper saw that Yang Chen only picked these, and his heart was slightly moved. He carefully asked, "Are you a demonic refiner?" "That's right." Yang Chen nodded and admitted, and then directly ordered, "Settle the accounts." This kind of store couldn't get a good devilish bead. The best one was in the upper 6th grade, the worst one was in the lower 6th grade. The average 6th grade was already a good harvest. It must be known that Yang Chun had not harvested a devilish bead in the past 2 years. Shopkeeper, when will there be an auction? After buying the devilish bead, he naturally had to ask when there would be an auction. At the auction, he could find a big high-grade devilish bead. The higher the grade of the devilish bead, the purer the devilish chi. He believed that it would be better for the 9 secluded flying sword. You are lucky, there will be an auction in half a month. The shopkeeper was also a well-informed person, and seeing that he was slightly sorry for Yang Chun, he also specifically told him the latest news. There is a super-class devilish Master Yang Rishing, Master Yang, who may come to this gathering point in 2 or 3 months. He is a legendary figure who can completely purify the devilish bead. When the shopkeeper talked about this, he was full of excitement. Don't you see so many masters of the Deshang stage here? They are all waiting for Master Yang to come. Yang Chun didn't think before that there would be so many masters of the Deshang stage in a gathering point that was deeper than the outermost gathering point. Now he finally understood what the reason was. It turned out to be because of him. In the last gathering point, Yang Chun said that he would come to this gathering point in 2 years. It was estimated that those who knew would spread the news, so there were so many people waiting here. This was also good. These masters had good devilish beads in their hands, which could completely meet the needs of the 9 secluded flying sword. Even without Yang Chun looking for the demonic chi to absorb, he could also exchange it for a lot of good materials like the 9 secluded flying dust. Even if there were no good materials, a large number of spirit stones could also earn more pocket money for his wives, killing many birds with 1 stone. After having the 9 secluded flying sword, the speed of absorbing the demonic chi had greatly increased. The purchased devilish bead was directly surrounded by the 9 secluded flying sword. It didn't even take 3 days for all the demonic chi to be absorbed by the 9 secluded flying sword, leaving no trace. They were all super-class devilish beads of the 6th grade. When Yang Chun was considering whether to sell them at the auction house, he suddenly found that Xiao Tian seemed to have some slight restlessness. Xiao Tian had actually been digesting the huge dragon bead. Although Yang Chun had used Xiao Tian several times before, in fact, Xiao Tian did not completely absorb the dragon chi in the dragon bead, but kept it in the body and refined it anytime and anywhere. Especially when he had nothing to do, he liked to stay in the dragon tower to cultivate. In the past few years on the demon continent, Yang Chun was afraid that Xiao Tian would also be contaminated by the demonic chi and become a demonized Yazi. In addition, for the purpose of experience, he was not willing to use Xiao Tian easily. Now from the thoughts passed by Xiao Tian, Yang Chun knew that Xiao Tian had really absorbed the dragon chi in all the dragon beads this time. This time, the dragon bead directly allowed Xiao Tian to enter the 3rd floor from the 2nd floor of the dragon tower, and its strength was abruptly improved by a level. The power of Xiao Tian was mainly reflected in the increase of the flying sword magic weapon. The higher the level, the stronger and sharper the flying sword in its mouth. In particular, the attribute that could cut everything was almost legendary. It was simply a heaven-defying existence. Even the illusory array could be directly cut in half. The 9 secluded flying sword, a magic weapon in the form of smoke, could also be cut in half against the flying sword in Xiao Tian's mouth. Xiao Tian, who had never been contaminated by the demonic chi, was actually restless about those devilish beads, which made Yang Chun a little curious. Did Xiao Tian want to swallow these devilish beads? The devilish bead that could improve the cultivation base of the cultivator, was it also useful for Xiao Tian? He just didn't know if Xiao Tian would have any obstacles to the growth of Xiao Tian in the future if he swallowed these devilish beads. Chapter 1033. With this idea in mind, Yang Chun did not avoid letting Xiao Tian know, and also passed it to Xiao Tian through the connection between the master and pet. Immediately, Xiao Tian gave a response. Delicious, great tonic. Yang Chen thought about the words that Xiao Tian passed and couldn't help but smile bitterly. In his opinion, it may affect the future cultivation and he needed to spend a lot of effort to correct the devilish bead. In the eyes of Xiao Tian, it was just a delicious tonic. Sure enough, the origin of the dragon was different from that of human cultivators. This was also normal. Human cultivators had to cultivate the source cultivation method in order to absorb the source spiritual power, but some powerful demonic beasts could rely on their instinct to directly absorb the source spiritual power of their own attribute. There were many differences between humans and demonic beasts. This difference also existed between Xiao Tian and Yang Chen. Since Xiao Tian thought so, Yang Chen was not worried. You must know that Xiao Tian got the inheritance of the Dragon Tower, and even got the inheritance of the Dragon Palace. The things that he knew about his clan must be more than Yang Chen. If he said that there was no problem, naturally there was no problem. Without thinking about it, Yang Chen threw a few purified devilish beads to Xiao Tian in the medicine garden. Xiao Tian swallowed it directly in the air. Compared with the size of Xiao Tian at the moment, a few 6th-grade devilish beads were not even qualified to fill the teeth. But Yang Chen saw that it seemed that Xiao Tian was holding the devilish bead in his mouth like a jelly bean, slowly melting and looking very delicious. This was also good, at least the devilish bead in Yang Chen's hand that had absorbed the devilish qi had a place to consume. This kind of super-class devilish bead, releasing too much would lead to a sharp decline in value, and it would also arouse the coveting of many people. With the consumption of Xiao Tian, it would not seem to be a waste. While refining his heart with the 9 secluded flying sword, Yang Chen was waiting for the auction to begin. After staying for half a month, he finally waited for this auction. However, when Yang Chen appeared again this time, someone had already recognized his identity. When the group of people saw that Yang Chen was the Master Yang they had been waiting for, the experts at the gathering point once again felt ashamed. Even when Master Yang was in trouble, they did not lend a hand. They had definitely offended Master Yang greatly. They did not know if they would have a chance to obtain the top-tier demonic baleful bead. Everyone knew what Master Yang was going to buy at the auction. Even the organizer of the auction had specially prepared 5 high-grade baleful bead. The lowest one was a lower 4th-grade bead, and the highest one was even a lower 3rd-grade bead. As expected, it was deeper than the periphery, and even the demonic baleful bead was getting bigger and bigger. Yang Chen was very satisfied. Compared to others, Yang Chen had plenty of spirit stones, so he wasn't afraid at all. He was only afraid that he wouldn't have a demonic baleful pearl. Unexpectedly, the 5 baleful demon beads were bought by Yang Chen at an unimaginably low price after a few rounds of bidding. No one offered a higher price. From the auction organizer to the owner of the baleful demon bead, it seemed that everyone had the same idea. Even the starting price was set extremely low, and the final transaction price was even lower than the market price outside. The meaning contained in this, Yang Chen was clear. Sure enough, the rules of this auction were slightly changed. At least when Yang Chen participated last time, he handed over the spirit stones in one hand and took the baleful demon bead in the other. But this time, he waited until all the baleful demon beads were auctioned off before a manager of the auction house personally invited Yang Chen to a room and presented all the baleful demon bead. Master Yang, this is a little tribute from my humble shop and several seniors. Please accept it, Master Yang. The attitude of the auction house manager was very good. His posture was extremely low and respectful. I don't lack these spirit stones. Yang Chen certainly understood and did not argue. He accepted the baleful demon bead and then left a sufficient number of spirit stones. The manager of the auction house was going to refuse, but after observing Yang Chen's face, he carefully accepted it. Thank you for giving me face, these baleful demon beads. After I purify them, please auction them. Yang Chen first gave a guarantee to the auction house, and suddenly the manager of the auction house laughed almost happily. "Several seniors, please give me face, thank you for me." Giving the benefits to the auction house, naturally he would also give benefits to these people who provided the baleful demon bead, so Yang Chen directly gave a promise. "Please pass a message. If these seniors still have baleful demon beads that need to be purified, I will take it all, but there are a lot of people, each person is limited to one." Including the auction house, the people who provided the baleful demon bead, the masters who participated in the auction who did not bid for the competition, were waiting for nothing more than this promise from Yang Chen. The manager of the auction house was directly overjoyed, and flattery was sent up without any cost, and it was not seen that he was a master of the early Deshang stage. "This time I may stay here for 2 years, you don't have to be anxious." There were many masters who provided the baleful demon bead, and Yang Chen needed a steady stream of demonic qi, and he could take the opportunity to repair himself. Of course, in addition to Yang Chen, there were also Yang Chen's 4 wives. For 3 years, they only saw each other for a short 10 days, and Yang Chen really missed them. What's more, with the 9 nether flying sword, Yang Chen just let the 4 wives also hone their state of mind, and everyone could get together for a few more days. Yang Chen quickly returned to his room with the baleful demon bead. The masters who had been waiting anxiously looked at the manager, who respectfully sent Yang Chen back to his room and rushed back to the auction house, waiting for his news. Master Yang said that he will stay here for 2 years. If you have a baleful demon bead in your hands, you can also go to him for purification, but each person is limited to one. The manager of the auction house naturally knew what everyone was waiting for, and announced it directly when he came back. When they heard that Yang Chen promised to purify the baleful demon bead for them, the masters of the Yuanying stage and Deshang stage cheered. What did everyone gather here and wait for? Wasn't it just to wait for Master Yang to make a move? When the peerless master wanted to kill Master Yang, none of them dared to speak up. When they found out that the one who was almost killed that day was Master Yang, who they were waiting for, it was not known how many people regretted it and stamped their feet. At that time, even if they had the courage to say a word for Master Yang, they would not have to be so careful now, right? Fortunately, Master Yang finally accepted everyone's kindness, accepted the 5 low-priced baleful demon beads, and promised to help everyone refine the baleful demon bead, which finally let everyone's heart that was in their throat down. Many people have begun to look forward to how their cultivation will be improved after they take the high-level baleful demon bead in their hand. Completely different from the ecstatic mood of the people at the gathering point of the demon continent, the Taishaman's side was simply gloomy, as if the sky was about to collapse.